Peace, family. Peace, peace, peace. I hope you guys are having a movie groovy day. And if not, do understand, honey, once you swing my way, your day is going to get better. Now, I was here, finna wash this pot and plate and cup. And, I got a download for me to come live, okay? And bless you folks with my presence, okay? And so here I am. I am in a flash. Okay. Now, if your life, you ever listen to something and felt so pumped up? Well, I tell you guys this all the time, right? So I listen to a lot of personal development, like a lot. And so this morning, I was listening to my main man, Bob Proctor. Okay, I listened to him for a few, and then I started listening to Neuro Knowledge. Okay, and to the ones that's out there that may be on a struggle bus, okay, maybe on a suffering bus. Okay, we about to have church up in here. You get what I'm saying? We about to have church, all right? Happy Sunday, Donna. Now, let me tell you something, okay? If you are on the struggle bus, okay, the suffering bus. Now, let me tell you, all of us experience suffering, a time or two, okay? And suffering, let me take that back, okay? Pain is inevitable. We all experience pain. We all go through things in life, and sometimes we say, where the hell did this come from? Am I right? How many of you, look at your life and you doing everything right? You helping old little Miss Betty across the street. You probably do, some of her groceries and stuff like that. You say, I'm doing so good. I'm a nice person. I'm kind. Well, let me tell you something, doll faces, okay? Can I tell you something? Just because you are kind and are a nice person, that does not mean that you're not going to experience pain. Let me say that again, because, I just feel somebody in the background, they may not have heard me correctly, okay? Just because you are a nice person, that does not mean that you are not going to experience pain. Okay, you are going to experience pain. What it says in the Bible, it rains on the just and also on the unjust. Meaning that we all go through things in life. Okay, we all gonna have ups and downs. But what matters is, are you planning on to stay down? Okay, now that's you gotta ask yourself this question, because this is an important question. And I'm gonna share a story with you guys last night. So my oldest son and I, we went to, we've been hanging out a lot, having a good time. And last night we went to Walmart because I wanted to get these sneakers, the doopity doops. Okay, the doopity doops, the Nikes, they are dupe at Walmart. So I went to, my oldest son brought me to Walmart, and he had paid for me to get 2 pairs of sneakers. And I thought the sneakers was $15 because last time I checked, they really was 15. And they really, really cute, and I was walking, and this is about shame, okay? Shame and guilt. And so I'm in Walmart. Now, these are the sneakers. One second, because I'm going to show you guys the sneakers just in case if you ain't see that video. My reel. 1 second. 1 second, honey. Give me 1 minute. One minute. But I also want to let you guys know that if your day or if your life isn't going the way you want it to go, all right, you have the ability and the control to change that. Okay, you don't have to wait until you get an apology, from somebody telling you they sorry. Because sometimes, honey, people may never give you an apology, because a lot of times the people who you say have hurted you, these people, they may have it deep down in their heart that they didn't hurt you. Okay, and there's one book that I absolutely love. Well, the books that I have, I love all of them. But the Four Agreements, they've been coming up lately. The Four Agreements. You stop taking things personal. Okay, stop taking things personal. You think that what somebody has said, somebody has done, you think that it's so personal. Oh, these people, they treat me a certain type of way. No, honey, it's not that they treat you a certain type of way. They was gonna treat anybody that type of way. Okay? So you gotta ask yourself, what am I doing to okay this behavior? Okay? Because people tend to do things and keep on doing them to you if they've been getting away with it for so long. And the way they've been getting away with it for so long is because you don't have boundaries. And when you go to create boundaries, especially if you grew up the way I did, you'll feel like you're not supposed to have boundaries. You're not supposed to tell people how to treat you. What gives you the right to tell people how to treat you? And all this foolishness. And so that's why you accept any and everything, because you never been conditioned or taught to have boundaries. Okay? Your whole life has been based upon people pleasing. How can I please this person? How could I please these people? I want them to like me. I want them to accept me, And from you wanting them to like you and trying your all for them to accept you, guess what? That is so frustrating. It becomes so frustrating and so overwhelming, because everything that you tend to do is like you got to walk on eggshell just so these people can like you. And you better not speak your truth, because if you do, honey, they definitely ain't gonna like you, especially if it goes against a tradition or goes against what they've been taught. So what do you do? What do you do in situations like that? All right, so I use, just FYI, okay, when I'm cleaning the dishes. Now, I used to buy these rags, these blue rags, they call Brillo rags, right? From the Dollar Tree. And I think it's like 9 in a pack. Absolutely love them. But the thought of like a washcloth, a dish rag, keep going over like the food and stuff, like the plates and stuff like that over and over and over again. It freaks me out. So, call it what you want. So I'm using a paper towels, okay? And there's a few of these, okay? There's a few, probably about like 4 or 5 of these, all right? Just in case if you was in my business, and just in case if you seen this and said, girl, what in the hell she using paper towel to wash dishes? That's why, all right? So getting back to what I was saying, so you have these people, you walking on eggshells, you're trying to be politically correct. At the same time, you scared, because what if these people don't like you? What if these people stop wanting to be around you? Any I had this good friend, she's still a good friend of mine, and every time she came over, she wanted to eat. One second. Now, every time she came over, she wanted to eat, right? And I didn't know exactly like what to say, how to say it to her that, like, damn, every time you come over, you want to eat, because I've been raised to be pretty much politically correct and a people pleaser, being nice. Nice actually means foolish. Okay. If you look it up, it's derived from Latin and it actually means foolishness. So anywho, so this good girlfriend of mine, she would come over, and whenever you go through your spiritual awakening, you become aware, is you're gonna be tested. So I wanted to tell her so bad, like, damn, you hungry every time you come to my house, right? But I was afraid. And so I remember one day I had mustered enough courage, and if the thought came to me, well, Dina, if you're not going to begin to tell her exactly how you feel, that means that she's going to come over either one or two things. She gonna come over and you're going to get upset because you didn't tell her exactly how you felt, or you're gonna stop inviting her over. Okay. And a thought came to me like, is this really a true friendship? Right? If you can't tell your friends exactly how you feel without you feeling like, oh, well, they gonna stop wanting to be my friend or whatever, then you gotta ask yourself, is there a true friendship? The answer is no. Okay, if you can't tell them how you feel, and you know, some people, when you tell them how you feel, they blow off the handle, you know, they get pissed off and stuff. Well, this particular day, I had mustered up enough courage and I sent her a message. Okay. And I said to her, I said, I don't mind you coming over, but when you come over, you always want to eat, right? And this is why me and her friends, because one of the things, she didn't go into defensive mode. She didn't go into, oh, you a liar. She didn't go into any of that. What she said was, well, Dina, I thought you knew I like to eat. Okay. All right. That's what she said. She said, Dina, I thought you knew I like to eat. She and then she also went on and she said, because every time when I come to your house, before I come to your house, I ask you, do you want something? Now, she probably asked me that like one time and I would say no. Okay. And that's another thing. Let me tell you something. When people offer to give you something and you don't feel like you can accept it, it can be a glass of water, it can be some food or whatever, and perhaps you really want it, but you afraid to accept it. And the reason you may be afraid to accept it because you may feel like these people gonna think less of you, or these people gonna think you're greedy, or whatever it is. Okay, but they offered, so accept it. Because if you can't accept things that people are offering you, how are you going to accept what God has for you? Honey, this is a whole ceremony up in here. Okay, if you can't accept the things that people are offering you, then how can you accept what God has for you? Now, some people, they do good deeds and stuff like that for people, and some people offer the money. Okay, some people offer the money. And what they tend to do is they say, oh, no, that's okay. You don't have to give me that, right? And basically, you refusing your own blessing. You refusing it because subconsciously, deep down in your subconscious mind, you may feel like you don't deserve it. And you can say, no, but I do deserve. I feel like I just. So why don't you accept it? Why don't you accept it? Okay. So when somebody offer you something, my children, especially my youngest daughter, she get invited to a lot of parties, right? And I remember we went to one of her friends' parties last year. And if I had all this different chatter going on in the mind, telling me not to go there, not to eat the food and stuff there. Well, let me tell you something. I had myself a good time. Okay. They offered, I ate. Okay. All right. Because I want to get out of the whole thing being too prideful. And so we went there and it was, some anxiety that showed up, okay, that was telling me, nah, not to go, yeah, because they just came from their father's house. And a part of me was like, go make sure they perfect, they look perfect and stuff like that, and then go to the party. But I told my youngest daughter, I said, let's go home and change, right? And she was like, no, we could just go. We could just go to the party. She was so excited to go to the party. So we went to the party and stuff. And that's another thing. Other people's perception of you, it doesn't matter. Let me say that again. Okay. Because you want people to accept you, right? And you're so concerned about other people's perception. Oh my goodness, what they gonna think of me? Oh my goodness, how they gonna view me and all this other stuff. You're going to have thoughts, and I don't care how spiritual you are. I don't care how enlightened you are, whatever it is. You are going to have thoughts. Thoughts are going to come up, okay? And you're going to, from time to time, it's going to be a thought that's going to say, don't wear that. Don't say that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And it's up to you to see if you are going to live for someone else or are you going to be true to yourself. And that's what spirituality really is. It's about you being authentic to yourself. All right. So last night I went to Walmart, right? And my oldest son had got me these sneakers. I like to say these sneakers are, Nikes, right? And so we was inside of Walmart. Now I've been wanting these sneakers. I seen people on social media how good they look on people's feet. So I said, you know what? I want to try those sneakers. I want to try them. Not to be a copycat, but they look classy. I like them. Okay, they look really, really good. And the people said that they comfortable, which they really are comfortable. I tried them on last night while I was in Walmart. And so this is how the ego or the forced self, right? The forced version of you is going to try to put you on a guilt trip or is going to try to make you feel shameful. Now, growing up, if you constantly heard you ought to be ashamed of yourself. When I was growing up, I heard that a lot. Whenever I did something that the adults didn't agree with, they would often say, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And so you may have this shameful complex where though you don't even know why you feel shameful or why you feel guilty and stuff like that. It's because you've been programmed whenever you did something that appeared to be wrong or go against, right? What you've been taught, you may have been put on like a shame trip. Okay. Be ashamed of yourself. You ought to have known better. That's why when people, do certain things, they beat themselves up real bad because they say, well, I ought to have known better because you was programmed that way. You was programmed by the adults that may have said you ought to have known better, right? And so as you grow up to be a child, an adult to be a child, to be an adult, which I like to say, we grow up to be, in some cases, hurt adults. If we don't deal with it, if we don't deal with, hurt children grow up to be hurt adults, but I like to say, loving children grow up to be loving adults, but you have to deal with it. You have to be aware of this. Now, if a person is unaware, guess what? They're going to keep on doing the same exact thing because a part of them, they don't know. They don't know why they do what they do. They don't know why they keep on making the same exact decisions and hoping and looking and praying for something new to occur. They just don't know. They so unaware and out of touch that they just keep on doing the same thing, hoping and praying and looking that something new shall occur. And life keeps showing them nothing new is going to occur. And another thing, I don't care how religious you are or how holier than thou you are. God is not going to violate universal law because you are so holy or because you helped Miss Betty across the street. There are universal laws that are in place, and if we go against them, we suffer. Okay. And that is really what it is. You suffer and suffering, pain is inevitable. Okay. But suffering is a choice. Suffering is like, the lessons are here. I see my life keep going in the same exact direction and I keep doing the same exact thing. You know what? Let me do something different. Okay. But oftentimes, you could be so caught up in the ego that you say, you know what? Although life is showing me this, I'm going to continuously do this. All right. I'm going to continue. Honey, we having church today. Well, if sometimes the offering can be a bribe. Well, I don't know about a bribe. Okay, honey. A bribe. I don't know about a bribe. But what I know to be true is that if people are constantly, now I'm not talking about one scenario, I'm talking about like if you are always offered things, money or whatever it is. Now, I mean, use your own discernment, okay? But if people are offering you stuff and you really want it, and you just keep saying no, like come on, all right. Like I'm saying, if you go to somebody's house and they say, "Oh, you want a glass of water or something," stuff like that. And you constantly say, "Man, but you really thirsty. You so thirsty that if you don't get that glass of water, you may pass out from dehydration." Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. You go over to a friend house, they ask you, do you want something? You say, "Nah, I don't want nothing," but you really do. That's what I'm talking about. One of my good homegirls, I remember she had some business to take care, and I had went with her, me and my two youngest children. And so afterwards she said to me, she said, "Dina, you want something from Dunkin' Donuts?" And I wanted this drink, right? I wanted this drink, but I said, "Nah, I don't want to put her at it away or whatever it is like that. Maybe I should just say no." And I remember I had said no, but then I said, "Wait, hold on. If she's asking me, who am I to turn her down and not allow her to receive the blessing that she was supposed to get?" Okay. All right. So I told her, I said, "Yeah, I take the drink." And she got the drink, and that was it. But oftentimes you are like that because you've been conditioned. Don't ask nobody for nothing. Growing up, don't you dare ask anyone for nothing. Okay. Now, this is what I want to talk to you guys about: shame. Okay, shame and guilt. So I told you guys last night, me and my oldest son, we went to Walmart, right? And my oldest son had got me these sneakers. Okay, these are really, really cute. I like these, really styling and profiling, like a girl here. Now, when we was in here, right? Now I had got the sneakers, and immediately, now before I was the type that I would pretty much look down on people, like if they didn't have certain things. Okay, I would look down. Or I would say, "Dang, they ain't have this." Like when I was, 12 years old, I went to this all girls home in Chester, New Jersey, and the memory is still stayed. It came up last night too, and I remember I went to this all girls home because of the things that I was doing, not listening, being defiant, wanting to do whatever it is that I wanted to do, didn't want to listen to authority, not one bit. Okay. And I remember I had because you got to take accountability and responsibility. So I put myself in this all girls home in Chester, New Jersey. It was called Del Rocks Deer Haven. And I was in there for about 14 months. But I remember when I first got there, right? Here it is, a kid that grew up in a projects, poverty was like big, and in the projects and stuff like that. And everything was based upon what you had. Everything was based upon, if you don't have this, if you don't have the new this, whatever it is, because that was oftentimes equated to value, right? Your self-worth. You felt like if you had the name brands and stuff like that, you was a somebody. Okay. And if you didn't have them, then you was a nobody. Okay. And so I remember when I went to the program, and I, 12 years old, 12 or 13. And I remember I got there and I had some Timbs, okay, some Timberland boots. It was 2 pair construction Timbs. And I had 2 pairs. And when I got there, I was like very prideful and took the Timbs out of the bag. 1 pair was beat up and the other pair was like freshly new. Okay. And the other girls, they didn't have them, and I said, "Dang, nobody got Timbs," like almost like looking down on them. And sometimes in life, when you are like that, like very, and you see it in the movies too, right? Like when you are very prideful, when you are like very judgmental about what people don't have and what you have and stuff like that, oftentimes, life will humble you some. Okay. to teach you a lesson, right? Just because you have all those things, they don't mean anything. Okay. Now, so last night, so I would get the Vince Commutos, the Michael Kors, I would do all of that, years ago. I would do all of that. I was a big person that was into, I couldn't leave the house unless my face was beat. Like I had the expensive makeup and stuff like that. Going to the mall and stuff, going shop. Every paycheck I got, I would just blow it. I would just blow it on things, that I liked, perfumes and bags and stuff like that. Now my bags, they wouldn't be, expensive like that. But the perfumes, that would be a big thing. The perfumes and like, the shoes, I would put more money in the shoes and stuff like that. Perfumes and shoes. Now the clothes, they may not be that expensive, okay? But the perfume and shoes, those were my cup of teas, okay? And a nice bag. What I know to be true, fashion or having a style isn't based upon how much this stuff costs. It's based upon how well you can put things together, okay? But, I had this thing subconsciously, everything was based upon how much it costs, or everything was based upon, me wearing this or wearing that, whatever. Okay. And so so last night when I was in Walmart and I had picked these sneakers up, right? And I had seen it was like three women, right? Three young ladies that I had walked past. And his thought came to me out of nowhere. You got skips. You got skips. You got doopity doops, right? And here I am. I'm walking with the sneakers, and the thought came to me, oh my goodness, these are skips, right? Out of nowhere, it came, And as I went, then later, because I was in the shoe out department, and my oldest son, he was like in the frozen foods department. And so as we met up, I had seen these two young men, and one of them was recording, and they had, I don't know what you call it, but they had like the Cosmo, the thing, the recording thing that you record videos and stuff. And I knew they was like, social media because they was recording. So I asked them, I said, are y'all on YouTube? And the guy was like, yeah. And we exchanged information and stuff like that inside of Walmart. And I remember when I first got in that aisle, I was thinking like, oh my goodness, these people gonna see that I have skips. This idea just came out of nowhere. This thought came out of nowhere. And I remember when I was going inside, all right, going inside. Now I had got a download, went on my way going inside of Walmart. But before that, I was at the food court, in the mall. And I got to download, record the video, say like put a funny line, a punchline. And the punchline was like, I'm on my way to Walmart to buy some Nikes. Okay. And these were the Nikes. And at first it was all this stuff that was going on in my mind. It was telling me, don't do that video. People that's who grew up in the same projects as you, they gonna see the video and all this other stuff. And, and it was all this chatter going on in the mind telling me all these different things, and I did the video. I said, what the hell? Let me just put the video up. Don't watch it. Sometimes I do that. Let me put the video up. I ain't got to rewatch it and all this other stuff. And I put the video up. I put it on Facebook and, shared it to my stories, shared it to the reel, then came on YouTube, put the video up. And one of the things that you have to understand when it comes to life is you have to do what works for you. And every time, I had so many incidents where as though my higher self would tell me to do certain things. Go here, go there, go do this, right? And oftentimes I would say, but I don't know anyone here, I don't know anyone here. And every time, every time I listened to my higher self, I went where I did not know anyone. I went to a location that I wasn't familiar with. Every time I was met with love. Every time I was met with love. And so when you follow your heart, okay, when you listen to your heart telling you, to go there to do this, right? And maybe you may feel a little scared, right? Because you're doing something you never done, you going places you never been, you meeting people you never seen before, and maybe it's something that's telling you, don't go, don't do it. But then it is your heart that's telling you, go there, right? Like you could be driving one day, and as you driving, you come across a supermarket. That's how, like, I find a lot of things, because whenever I go out, and my intuition may say, go there, go here, you know, and then the monkey in the mind, it may say, why would you go there? You don't know no damn body there, right? And what would these people think? That's a big one, that comes up. What would these people think? You don't know anyone here, right? And I just go. Majority of the times I just go. Now I'm not perfect, okay? But majority of the times I go to get out of my comfort zone. Because how could you grow if you keep doing the same exact thing? Life becomes so dull and so boring when you wake up and do the same exact thing continuously. And there's no growth, there's no I want to say humiliation. Like you're not willing to go somewhere, ask questions that, some may consider silly or whatever it is like that. But how would you know, or how would your life get better, or how would your life look different if you're not willing to take the leap out on faith, if you're not willing to do something different? You got to be willing to do something different. And of course the chatter is going to come. Of course the monkey in the mind is going to tell you all these different things. It's going to tell you you're not good enough. What makes you think that you deserve it? All these different things. And let me tell you something. You have the ability to accept or reject. Whenever something comes up, whether you get a piece of mail in a mailbox or whatever it is, whether someone says something to you, it doesn't matter what it is. Whether you went to court and the judge said something, you have the ability to say, nope, that is not happening for me. That is not going to happen in my life. Okay, you have the ability to accept or reject. But you know what most people do? Most people, when they see a piece of mail or receive a piece of mail, when people say stuff to them, they don't reject it. They accept it. They accept whatever life is given to them, not realizing that they have the ability to change their lives. Not realizing it. They leave it up to fate. Fate. Oh, well, if my life was supposed to change, it would have changed already. No. Yeah. If you want your life to change, it will change by you making the necessary adjustments in order for your life to change. Now, I know this young lady, okay, and I remember she got pregnant with one child from this guy. Okay. And the guy was pretty much, she would say the guy is a liar, the guy is a cheater, the guy is not like a financial provider for, he provides, but he don't do necessarily like what he is capable of doing as him being a man, right? And so she has this one child from the guy. And one of the things that I noticed was that every time something happens, like whether she pulls away or whatever it is, or whether she start focusing more on her, the guy gives her just enough of attention to keep her there, right? And these are some of the things that you need to be aware of. And so she got pregnant again from the guy. And one of the things I said to her, I said, I said, no, she said to me, she said, well, if it wasn't meant to be, I wouldn't be pregnant again from the guy, right? And we have this thing where as though we put God in the middle, right? We say, well, if God didn't want my life to turn out this way, God would never, put me in this situation or whatever it is. There's a good book. It's called Working with the Lord by Raymond Howell, right? And one of the things that I had told her, I said, no, that has nothing to do necessarily with God. God has nothing to do with that, because there's a such thing called free will, right? Free will is basically you have the ability to choose whatever it is that you want to do in life. But that does not mean that if you violate or go against the laws of this here universe, that because you have free will, that your life is going to be, smooth sailing, or you're not going to pay or be faced with consequences because you violated the laws of the universe. So oftentimes we'll say, well, God did this, God wanted this to happen, and we say things like this: God doesn't put anything on our plate that we can't handle. And majority of the time, you are the one that's putting the stuff on the plate. I was putting for so long. I continuously, I still put stuff on my plate, and it puts me in the mind of what Abraham Hicks said. She said, it's so many people that go to the buffet, they see what they don't want, and they put the stuff on their plate anyway, as opposed to looking at the stuff that you don't want and go directly to the stuff that you do want and put that stuff on your plate. The stuff that you do want, you put that stuff on your plate. And so many times you may get caught up on focusing on things that you don't want to happen, you don't want to occur in your life, but you're so invested and focused on how things been going in your life that you keep on investing time and energy into how things used to be. You keep investing time and energy on, you always been this way. And you keep saying this, I've always been this way. People who often say they always been this way, they are afraid of change. Because I used to be one of those. I used to say, I've always been this way. As if to say, just because I've been this way, I have to stay this way. You do not have to stay this way. You can change at any given time. It is really up to you if you want to change. I don't care what your life looked like, when you was a child. And I'm not saying that to be dismissive, but whatever occurred to you when you was a child, that does not mean that it has to stay the same way. That does not mean that you have to stay there. If you grew up in poverty, that does not mean that you have to stay there. Okay? It does not mean that. But what you constantly focus on, that's what will grow. If you constantly focus on it, I'm trying to see. 1 second. Now, this part right here in this book. Now, in this book, I love this book. This is Working with the Law by Raymond Howell. Okay, if you don't have this book, your library isn't complete. Okay, like in the words of Bob Proctor. Now it says the mind creates either good or bad. Your ideas determine which is to be created. Okay, our fears can do so much to us that we should be most careful when we fear and worry about things. Okay. Years ago, when the flu epidemic was raging throughout this country and many were dying from the plague, a newspaper published an item of interest. In bold letters, the heading read, "Do not fear the flu." It was the caption of an article written by a local doctor who explained that fear was the greatest enemy of mankind and that it would have a tendency, to break down a person's mental resistance and make him more susceptible to the disease. The world is realizing more and more that we dare not entertain in our minds any fear. If so, it shall come upon us. Okay. So whatever it is that you fear, and I'm not saying I don't have, thoughts that come to me from time to time, because they do. We have so many thoughts that come to us in a day. But when the thoughts come to me, all right, I make sure that I listen to so much personal development. And I don't care, I don't care how much personal development you may listen to, how much, the word you may read, the Bible and stuff like that, how much you go to church and stuff like that. Your faith will be tested. Okay. It's just is what it is. Your faith will be tested. And I love how, what is his name? Lordy. What is his name? I can't think of the guy name. But he has like the boar head and stuff, and he go like into a trance, like the same thing like Abraham Hicks. Oh gosh, what is his name? But anywho, I love how he said that everything in our lives, it is all working for us. So how could you ever lose? Right? How, like, if you look at your life and you see like everything that you've been up to this point, everything worked out for you. Because if it wasn't for all those, the obstacles, the trials and tribulations, if it wasn't for any of those things, you would not be the person that you are today. If it wasn't for you experiencing a bad paycheck, right? Which there's no good or bad paychecks, they just paychecks. But if you didn't experience that, how would you know that you wanted a better paycheck? If you didn't experience the men or the woman that you have dated over the years, if they didn't do the things that they did, you may not be married today. Or you may have not been able to write down exactly what it is that you do want. You got to focus on what you do want. I had a friend who had came to my house, and she would constantly go on and on about this guy, right? This guy wasn't this guy wasn't that, this guy was, full of, whatever. And I remember she would complaining about this. She would complain about this guy all the time. Say he wouldn't do this. He was a liar. A cheater. A good for nothing. Just keep on complaining about him. And in my mind, what I'm thinking is, I'm saying to myself, well, he's no different than the other guys that you messed with. Okay. And I told her, I said, well, in order for you to meet somebody else, then you're going to have to, you're going to have to change who you are, right? You're going to have to change who you are and what you do. So we talked and talked and talked. And she pretty much was, feeling some type of way about the guy. Gosh, not a whole lot in here. Hold on, Philly, 1 minute. Okay, so last night when I went to Walmart, I had got these things right here. Okay. And I'm not a coffee drinker like that. I used to drink coffee like back in the day, the French vanilla and stuff like that from Dunkin' Donuts. But I'm not a really big coffee drinker. And my children, my smaller children, they love the Starbucks, the drinks, the frappes, they love it. So I had ordered this. My daughter, she went on, my youngest daughter, she's 8, went on Amazon. I told her, I said, you could pick a few items. And this was one of the things that she picked. Honey, I can't let her see this. Okay. I don't know if there's too much in that. Okay. And this right here, this is the creamer. This is the first time I'm trying this. Oh, I think I should have put this first. Dang. Right? Honey, I ain't got no ice. But I said, you know what? This will do it. Okay. Let's be bougie on a budget. How about it? Okay. Now, I should have put this like all on the side. You see them do this on at Starbucks and stuff. Oh my goodness. One of the things that I absolutely love at Starbucks is they ribbon crunch. Now, they got a lot of sugar in there. That's not something that you can do every day, in my opinion. But it's so good. The ribbon crunch. Oh, my goodness. It's really, really good. Okay. Honey, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I have an idea, but, honey, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Hold on. I could have just did it like this. Isn't this fancy? Okay. Is that how much you're supposed to put in here? That's how much. Well, that's how much is going to be in it. Okay. I should have probably. See, this is when the ice comes in. Because when you put the ice, you don't have to fill it up, so much with the liquids. That's why when I go to, the fast food restaurants, I tell them to hold off on the ice. Okay. All right, let's see. All right, so this is pretty much how it's looking. Now, I don't know how this gonna taste, but okay. So I had a good friend, right, come to my house. She would complain about the guy, that she was messing with, saying that he was this, he was that, he just was no good, right? And one of the things, oh my goodness, this is so good. Oh, this is really, I just been living life, okay? I remember once upon a time when I would do the videos and stuff like that, I felt like I couldn't put this in the videos. If I wanted to eat certain things, I couldn't put that because, I came on here eating very healthy. All right. And I felt like, I can't show people this. I can't show, now I just live life and it feels so damn good. I don't give a damn about the opinions. Okay. Now, this is the creamer. This is caramel creamer. Okay. And then this is the Pure Made sauce. This is caramel. All right. And then we have the Delight Cold Foam Creamer. All right. And I think this is caramel. No, this is pumpkin. This is pumpkin. I don't know if they're gonna have pumpkin. I think that was just pretty much, for the I don't know, maybe just for the winter. And then we also have the cold brew concentrate caramel dose. Okay. Dose. So I'm gonna have to get another thing of this for my youngest daughter. So back to what I was saying, So, the person, she was complaining about this guy, saying this guy was this, saying this guy was that. Just saying the guy was all of this, right? And I remember I asked her, I said, well, what type of person do you want? You keep saying, this person is this and that. And she told me, she said, well, I don't want a liar. I don't want a cheater. I don't want someone, I don't want someone that's not going to take me out. So she started telling me all the things that she didn't want. Now I asked her what she did want. And we've been so programmed to focus on what we don't want that we get sort of caught up and focus and keep focusing on what we don't want. And as long as you focus on what you don't want, you shall receive more of what you don't want. So as I'm asking her, what type of guy do you want? She's telling me exactly what she don't want, right? I don't want to lie. I don't want a cheater. And I said, well, what do you want? I asked you what you want, and you keep telling me what you don't want. And I said, you see why you keep getting what you don't want? Because that's where all your energy is going. That's where your focus is going. That's where your concentration is going, on what you don't want. So I said to her, so what do you want? Like, what do you prefer? So she told me she want a guy that, go to the gym. And I think I put too much of the concentrate stuff. Ooh, I think I put too. See, that's why you have to have the ice. but it's pretty good. So I told her, I said, well, write out what it is that you want, right? So she is the right, and she want a guy that's healthy, a guy that works out. She want a guy that is honest, a guy that takes her out, a guy that's gonna treat her good. So the easiest thing is, well, oftentimes people don't really know what they want. Because if you go up to the average person, you ask them what they want, I can assure you that they're going to tell you exactly what they don't want. They're going to tell you, that they don't want this. They don't want a job like this. They don't want a spouse like this, as opposed of telling you exactly what it is. And that's how you can see like where they focus and attention and mindset is. It really is. And if you have family members that's always complaining and telling you exactly how wrong their life is and how bad it's going, then you can ask them. I guarantee you, if you ask your family members this, ask them like, well, so what do you want? I guarantee you they're going to focus on what they don't want. And that's why they keep getting exactly what they get, because that's what they're focusing on. And so I told her, she wrote the stuff down, and I said, well, now you got to become that stuff. You see how you said that you don't want the guy to be lying to you? Then you gotta stop lying to yourself. You gotta be real with yourself. You gotta be honest with yourself. And we have this thing where, as though, because we become a little enlightened, or because we know a little more, right? Became a little aware. We have this thing where, as though, we feel like oftentimes we're not supposed to experience certain emotions, whether it's fear, whether it's sadness, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's jealousy, or any of those things. And it's this great book that I absolutely love by Vernon Howard, and it's called The Mystic Path to Cosmic Power. Absolutely brilliant book. Love it. And in that book, Vernon Howard, he talks about, if you were in a sick, because it was a guy who kept getting angry, and he would get angry, but he didn't want people to see his anger. And so what you don't face or address, or what you try to suppress, it progresses. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so Vernon Howard, the guy had asked him, he gets so angry. This is what one of Vernon Howard's students told him. He said, every time he gets so angry and frustrated. And Vernon Howard said, anger is not the problem. Basically, what's the problem is the suppression of anger. That's what's really the problem, and is making it more and more and more because you keep trying to suppress it. And so Vernon Howard said, if you was in the 5th grade, you wouldn't be upset that you not in the 6th grade. And so basically Vernon Howard was basically telling him that just because you experience anger, right? At times you get angry, you don't beat yourself up for that. Or you don't say, well, I should have known not to get angry because I'm so spiritual, or I'm so religious, or whatever it is. I should have known. No. And it's the same exact thing when you meet people. That's really concentrated. When you meet people, or you have family members, that's another a certain type of way, like Eckhart Tolle, okay, who is the author of The Power of Now. And I remember I was watching his video on YouTube, okay, and he said his father and mother. His father was sort of like abusive, right? Like, yelling, like had anger problems, when Eckhart Tolle was growing up. And he said he remember, like, he had like some type of animosity. Like his father never took, was angry, would take the frustration or whatever out on Eckhart Tolle. He would mainly do it to his mother. And he said as he grew up, right, instead of him trying to get his father to change, what he would do was he would go to the father house and they would watch politics. Okay. And the father would, would release the anger. He would say, like, about the politicians and stuff like that. He would be so, angry with the politicians and stuff. And that was a form like of him releasing the anger. And so Eckhart Tolle, he didn't no longer want to control, like feel that like, oh, let me control my father. I don't want him to be angry. He just directed it in a different direction. Oh, let's watch politics, so he could release his anger. And he said over time, it was like his father changed. It was like his father changed. When you come to accept people for who they are, now that does not mean that you have to be around them, all the time. But when you come to accept people for who they are and what they are demonstrating to be right now, right? They do have potential to grow. We all have potential to grow. We all have potential to become different and do different and be different. But when you accept them, like a person that's a liar, the person is a liar. All right. And so by you keep on badgering them and saying, this person should tell the truth. Like, why don't you tell the truth? I would do that with my kids sometimes, when they was young, my two oldest children, like, just tell the truth, right? Mainly my oldest son. And he would he would lie. He would keep lying, right? And so, if the person is going to keep on lying and you constantly ask them to tell you the truth and they're going to keep on lying to you, you do yourself a disservice by expecting for them to tell you the truth when they done demonstrated time and time again that they're not going to tell you the truth. I remember when I was, like in my teenage years or my early adult years, my grandmother, she would say, she would never ask a guy like where they been at, right? Because sometimes maybe they're not going to tell you the truth. Now that's all, belief system and stuff like that. But one of the things that you have to understand, if like your mother is a liar, okay, or if your mother is a gossiper, then you ask yourself, and then you get upset and you say, oh, well, my mother tell my business. She done told everything that I done told her. Then it comes a point in time where so you ask yourself, well, why do I keep telling my mother my business? Why you keep telling her? Why you keep telling your mother your business? If your mother have demonstrated time and time again that she is going to tell your business, and you keep saying, you know what? Let me just tell her. Let me tell her because she can give me advice. Most of the time you tell her or you tell them who keeps telling your business because you want them to be on your side. You want them to side with you. You want them to necessarily agree with you. And that's why you go and tell them. And although they demonstrated time and time again that everybody in the family is going to know your business. Everybody in the family is going to know your business. And you keep on doing it. You keep on doing. There's a great book, okay? It's called Trust by Miss Iyanla Vanzant, okay? And in this book, it's so powerful. It's so, so good. Now, in this book called Trust, Miss Iyanla Vanzant goes on. Now, this is the book, okay? Really good read. I have a few of Miss Iyanla Vanzant books. I love her, okay? But this is one of the things that she says, okay? And she talks about trust, all right? And it's so funny how people say, I don't trust them. I used to be one of those people. I used to say, I don't trust this guy. Although I was in a relationship with him, okay? And I would say, I don't trust him. Well, why are you with him? Okay. If you don't, and it wasn't so much I didn't trust him, I didn't trust myself. That's really what it was. I did not trust myself. And so it talks about in the first contents, okay, it talks about trust in self. Okay, trust in self. All right. Now, it goes on and says, How does a newborn baby, honey, we having church, we having class, okay, all in one, all right? How does a newborn baby know that when it sucks on the nipple, something good will come out? It doesn't know. What it does is trust. I never forgot, I never forget this wisdom because it taught me that no matter how old I am, or how much I think I know, each day that I awake, I'm like a newborn baby who trusts in life. Isn't that good? Isn't that good? Isn't that really, oh, isn't that phenomenal? No matter how old she is, no matter how much she thinks she know, okay, each day that she awakes, she's like a newborn baby who trusts in life. Over the years, what I have learned about trust is that we, like the newborn, do it all the time without even thinking about it. Trust is what we do each day when we get out of bed and put our clothes on. It is the thing that makes it possible for us to keep putting one foot in front of the other. I trust that my body will sustain me, that people will support me, and that you hear that? Okay. If- I remember back in 2018, okay, when I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was so sick of doing the same thing. Remember how I said I would go shopping, and that was sort of my way. Now, if anybody would have told me back then what I was doing, I was so unaware of this that I didn't even know. Okay. And remember, I told you guys I grew up in the projects. And so everything was based upon, what you have. And what you have meant, if you had these name brands, that was like your self-worth, right? Like, oh, imp- I'm important because I have name brands and stuff like that. You felt like you was a somebody, okay? Because that's basically if you come from a poverty-stricken area, and everything is based upon what you have and stuff like that. If you don't have much, you're gonna think that you're not important. You're gonna think that you're a nobody, or you're gonna feel a certain type of way because you don't have what the other little kids have, and maybe you was brought up that way, right? Maybe you was brought up that way, maybe because I remember seeing people that I love, and I'm grateful for this. I'm so grateful. My aunt, she dressed, oh my goodness, so fabulous. She would always have like the Donnie and Burks. I think that's how you pronounce it, Donnie and Burke bags. She will always be well put together. Nail polish. She would paint her own nails, always done very neat, very just put together. If I could just say one word, just put together. She was always well groomed and put together. Always wear the expensive perfumes and stuff like that. She just was. My aunt is one of them women that just love nice things. Just love nice things. And I grew up. After my father living with my father, and went to a group home and a foster home you know and then my aunt had got custody of me, and being around it, seeing her, well put together, always wearing the best of the best, always wore the best of the best. And I seen that, and then it made me, when I grew up, want more from life. And I'm grateful for that, okay? Because God don't want you to live a mediocre life, if God is be or no or, and God is love. God wants you to experience the finest things in life. Okay. Now, if you believe that you're not supposed to experience the finest things in life, then you got to ask yourself why you feel that way. Okay. Oftentimes it's a belief system. Oftentimes, and I went through this too. When I first had my spiritual awakening, where so I felt like, because I'm spiritual, I'm well, I don't need those nice things. I'm spiritual. Yeah, I don't need to have those nice things. But that's a belief system in itself too. Until I start really getting into the concept, God really wants you to have nice things. And it's this great book. It's called The Prosperity Bible. And in that book is many books in one. But it's a book by what is his name? It's called The Science of Getting Rich, okay? By Maxwell Maltz. Is it Maxwell Maltz? By Maxwell, I think. And in that book, right, the author talks about how God really wants you to have really nice things. God wants you to go to beautiful places. God wants you to wear the finest of the finest. Okay. You're a representation of God. Okay. And so God wants you to have the best. And so, one of the things that I thought, though, well, if I have all these things, materialized things, and this is when a problem come in, because if you so attached to the things, or if you feel like these things, or if you putting these things on a pedestal, or if you feel like these things are going to take away, you feeling like you're not good enough, right? Like you look at these things, well, these things gonna make me feel like valuable, or these things gonna make me feel, have a higher self-worth, that's being attached to the items, okay? And if you attach to them, if you was to ever lose your job or whatever and can't buy those things that you once used to buy, then you are going to suffer. Why? Because your whole identity is based upon what you had. That's it. Based upon what you had, based upon, what this cost and stuff. And I'm not saying not to have nice things, right? I like nice things, okay? But you're not supposed to be attached to the things, okay? So let's get back to this. So I trust that my body will sustain me, that people will support me, and that what I need, want, and desire, I can and will eventually have. I trust that I can leave my home and return to find it standing. I trust that my children and grandchildren will be safe from harm as they move throughout their day. I trust that my partner really does love me and that we will become stronger together as the years pass. When trust is present, against all odds, we enroll in school with no guarantee that we will find a job. It is trust that makes not enough money enough to do what we need to do. Listening to Bob Proctor, I remember one of the things that he said that was so profound is two people, right, that wake up each and every morning, and perhaps both of them are unemployed. Is one person that goes, I know I'm going to find a job. I know I'm going to find a job that pays me what I deserve to be paid. I know I'm going to find a job where as though the people are so kind and loving. I know I'm going to find a job that has excellent benefits. Is that one person? And then there's also another person. Now, this other person wakes up in the morning and say that there's no jobs, nobody will hire them. Oftentimes they may throw the race card in because of the color of their skin, right? And in the words of Narrow Knowledge, one of the things he says is, he said, there's no truths, just half truths. Okay. Now, the person who wake up every morning and say that they're not going to find a job, okay, the person who wakes up every morning and say they're going to find a job, they're going to have amazing benefits, the people there are, their co-workers are going to be amazing, loving, that person is true. That person is absolutely correct. And a person who says that they can't find a job, there's no jobs around, nobody will ever hire them, they true too. Because that's they believe. Now, whatever it is that you believe, you shall achieve. Okay. So if you wake up every morning and saying, nobody likes you, nobody want to see you win, the universe or God is out to get you. There's a black cloud over you. Everywhere you go, this black cloud, it just sort of follows you. You're right. You are absolutely right. There's no truths except for half truths. Now, somebody else, and everything is based upon perception, right? Somebody else could be going through the same exact, grew up the same exact way, experienced the same exact things in life. And that person can have a very different perception than you. very completely different, totally different than you. But because you have this belief that things aren't supposed to work for you, that, you came here to suffer, you can only experience the good when you die and go to heaven. If you have that belief, you are absolutely correct. And it's not until you change that belief, okay, will you experience something different. Will you experience something different? I tell you guys all the time, I remember and it still comes up from time to time, okay? I had this concept. When I was growing up, and my mother loved me, and I love my mother to the life of me. But when I was growing up, my mother would oftentimes say I was lazy, okay? And I just didn't want to do the chores, okay? I didn't want to, but honey, I still had to do them. And so my mother, she would oftentimes say, you are so lazy, right? You are so lazy. I just wanted to play. I just wanted to do stuff that kids want to do, And my mother was oftentimes, she would say I was so lazy, right? And so growing up, having that program in the subconscious mind, right? That I was so lazy, oftentimes, especially, and I seen it with doing content. And oftentimes I would, oh, I don't want to be lazy. I don't want people to think I'm lazy. It was almost like, it was almost like if somebody thought I was lazy, oh my goodness, that was the worst thing ever. Okay. And I remember feeling like, well, I got to overperform. Because if I don't overperform, now I didn't know this, a few years ago, just became aware, why do you work until you exhausted? Okay. Why do you work until you feel burnt out? Why do you do that? And then I remember hearing it. You're so lazy. You're so lazy, And so now it's like, oh my goodness, it's like you going against the chatter, right? And it's like you have the choice to keep on trying to prove yourself to the chatter, okay, the monkey in the mind, just calling you lazy or whatever. And you have a choice, or you can say, you know what? I did like I will upload. I tell you guys this all the time. I will upload so many videos per day. Okay, per day. Wasn't really paying attention to the results, right, of the videos so much, the analytics of the videos I was putting out. I would just upload. I was like in a, let me produce. And I never forgot Peach McIntyre. I took her class of a few times, okay, several times. And I never forgot how she would keep saying, you gotta look at your analytics, right? Also, Sean Cannell, okay, from Think Media, he would say, you gotta look at your analytics, right? And I got to the point, because if you're not paying attention to the results, it's something that's called frustration. You become frustrated because you putting out the stuff, but the stuff you putting out, it don't meet. Okay, it's like it doesn't meet what you expect or what you want. And so you got to pay attention to the results. That's the results of anything in your life, okay? Your grades, okay, that's an indication of where you at subconsciously when you took that test. It doesn't mean that you stupid, you dumb, or whatever it is. It's just a reflection of where you are subconsciously, what you feel about yourself, Oftentimes I would, tell my youngest son, like, you got to study, you gotta read and stuff like that. And I remember with my youngest son, and I experienced this firsthand. I remember the teachers would tell me, certain things about my youngest son, like, oh, he raised his hand or whatever it is. Sometimes he don't raise his, whatever, right? And I remember one day they called a meeting, And they was trying to say that my youngest son probably he should get, extra help, like be, classified or whatever it is. And I remember what my aunt said, my aunt who pretty much raised me for 5 years, 5 or 7. And I remember how she would say, you never classify. This is what she told me. Okay. Now you do what works for you in your life. Now she said, don't ever classify your children. Right. And so my youngest son, I remember I went to the school and stuff like that, and we had a meeting, and pretty much they were saying, oh, we think that he deserved more help and stuff like that. And this time I'm listening to Bob Proctor a lot. Okay. And I said, you know what? Perhaps before he got to sleep, and on the weekends, my youngest children go to their father's house. And this time he was like staying at my house, like staying home on the weekends, like a lot. And I remember we were listening to Bob Proctor, right? Kept listening to him. And so when Monday came, we had to have another meeting, right? And his teacher at that time, she said, she was telling me, explaining like, he was inconsistent with the work. He's supposed to do the homework. Me personally, when I was a kid, I didn't care for homework. Okay, I didn't care for it. Do it the last minute. Do all these different things the last minute and stuff like that. So what wound up happening? We had a meeting, and I was afraid. I was afraid to speak up for myself. Speak up. But it was something in me that was like, no, you got to speak up. You speak up because who's going to speak up for your children? If it's not you, then who? Right. And so I spoke up. I said, no, he don't need to be there, or he don't need their help and stuff like that. So we listened to Bob Proctor. Now that Monday morning, the teacher, and his other teachers telling me, whatever. After that meeting, okay. Was it Monday or was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday. After that meeting, his teacher says to me, when I went to pick my youngest son up, she said, I don't know what you've been doing, right? But it's like a 360, He's raising his hand. He's getting the answers correctly, complete 360. And she said, whatever it is that you're doing, keep on doing it. And we was just listening to personal development, just listening. But what the personal development was doing was, it was having him believe in himself more. It was having him believe in himself, And so it changed. And one of the things that, my mentor Bob Proctor said was, he said, you have to listen to personal development every day. Now, some people may be like, nah, that's not true. I manifest this stuff without listening to it. And it's true, because I even manifested, we all manifest things. Each and every day we manifest things. The question becomes, do you like what you're manifesting? Okay. That's the question. And you manifested things that you like without listening to personal development. The whole concept is you got to do what works for you. Okay. You have to do what works for you. And so closing, okay, because I'm about to go on Facebook Live. Okay. Closing. I want you to understand a few things. One, that you can have what you desire. All right. That you can have what you desire. Two, you have to be authentic to you. When I first started making videos, right, and I came on the scene like the Master Lean, okay. When I first started making videos, my whole concept was health, okay. I was doing smoothies. I was, doing all these different things. I was plant-based and everything like that. And the idea of, even if I ate a piece of chicken, which I did, okay, and the guy who I was dating, he told social media, because I wanted it to be a secret. Oh my goodness, I don't want people to think that, I had chicken and I'm coming on here talking about plant-based and vegan and stuff like that. And I remember he told, and I was like really, really embarrassed, okay. And you got to be true to you. It's going to be so many people. It's like after you leave one box, you put yourself in another box, but it's going to be so many people that's going to say, oh, you shouldn't have this. You shouldn't have Doritos. You shouldn't eat this. You shouldn't eat that. And if you go based upon it puts me in the mind of my youngest children book, Pete the Cat. Okay. If your children don't have this book, Pete the Cat is really, really good. Okay. And in that book, it talks about Pete. And Pete, he, he was listening to what everybody was telling her. His mother was telling him he should wear this. His brother was telling him he should wear this. Now this is Pete the Cat. Okay. Everybody was telling him all these different things, what to do. And Pete listened to all of them. And you know how Pete looked at the end. Okay. You know how he was dressed. All right. A mess. Pete was dressed a mess. A mess at that. Okay. And so what wound up happening, Pete wound up putting on what he wanted to put on. He felt way more comfortable. All right. And so you have to, we live in a world where as though is based upon showing up with facades, with personas, right? Showing up, not being authentic to you, right? And what I come to realize so many times, I'm going to share one more story with you guys. 1 second. Let me go get this piece. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know what this is, but you see a lot of people that's like from India or what's that other place? Like you will see the guy, what's his name, with the white hair, and he be on YouTube. I forgot his name. But he wears this too sometimes. So let me tell you the story how this came about. I was doing Uber. Okay. And as matter of fact, this day it was Uber. I used to do Uber and Lyft. Okay. And this one particular day, I had picked up these two gentlemen. Okay. And I used to wear a lot of bracelets, right? Like the tiger's eye, amethyst, different stones. Okay. That oftentimes people would say, oh, they spiritual, okay, because they wearing the stones and stuff. And I went through this phase too, wearing all the stones. I would go to this shop. I'm gonna say I still go because I'm gonna still go there. It's this shop in Montclair, New Jersey, and they also have one in West New York, West Orange, New Jersey. And this place, it has some of the gorgeous, bracelets and necklaces too. And they stones really, really good. And they good quality. And I would go there and buy the bracelets and stuff like this. This was like during my spiritual, awakening. And I would go there and I would buy the things. Sometimes I would spend over $100 just on bracelets, right? Like, oh, the more bracelets I have, the higher I am. Right? Foolishness. And I remember this one day I had not the tiger's eye. I wore the tiger's eye too. I love the tiger's eye bracelet. But I remember this one particular day I had on the evil eye, right? The protection thing. And it has like the evil eye. And I had this gorgeous bracelet. And so when the two guys came in a car, it was like, I don't want to say guru, but it was like the teacher. It was like the teacher and then the student, right? They was older men. And so the older guy had said to, let's just say his student, he said, like she has the evil bracelet, right? And the conversation, like we started talking about spirituality and everything like that, And I dropped off the teacher. Okay. I dropped him off, and the student still was in the car. The student, I'm just say student for the sake of explaining this, okay? Now the student probably was like in his 40s or so, and I dropped off his teacher, and the student had a shop. Well, he has a shop in New York, and oh goodness, I think it's Soho, if I'm not mistaken. This shop is gorgeous. It's so beautiful. It is so, so gorgeous. And when I was dropping him off, I didn't know I was dropping him off to his shop. But we got to talking and stuff like that. And I think he's from Nepal. Yeah, he's from Nepal. Okay. Really amazing guy. And I dropped him off, and we got to the store, and he was like, you could come in, and see the different things and stuff that I had. And I was so impressed. Oh my goodness, I was so impressed with like the bracelets. He had sounding bowls. He even gave my son, my oldest son, because I kept talking about my oldest son. He gave my oldest son like this sounding bowl. I think my oldest son took that with him. But this sounding bowl, he gave us some incense, really smell good incense, smelled amazing. And so we developed like a connection of a relationship, friendship. And his wife do some amazing artwork. Oh my goodness, the artwork, the paintings was absolutely gorgeous. So that day went on, and he said, well, if you want to come to the shop, anytime you want to come to the shop, you could come, whatever. And so this one particular day, I went to the shop. Okay, me and my oldest son, because I went to this vegan spot in New York, and I had got some vegan food. And after we went to the vegan spot, I told my oldest son, I was telling my oldest son about the guy, because the guy gave him the singing bowl, right? And so we get to the shop. At first, my oldest son didn't want to get out of the car, but he got out of the car. And I had seen these beads. Right now, I forgot what you call them, right? But these are very heavy. And when I was in the shop, my focus instantly went to this. And he says, I'm like, I don't, for me, I go like, I like the stuff that stands out. Okay. Like, I like the stuff that stands out. It's just what it is, honey. And so this stood out, okay, these beads, and it's very long, okay? They are very, very long. Now, these beads are like, they say for protection and stuff like that, okay? But I remember I went to the shop and I seen these beads, and he had like shorter ones. It was like real, real shorter ones, but I wanted these beads. And so I remember when I was at this shop, right? Now, these beads, I think it's like $10 per bead. Okay. And I was like, oh my goodness, $10 per bead. Right. But he gave me a discount. Okay. So I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for these. But anywho, so he gave me a discount. And I remember one day I was going to buy my youngest son some birthday gifts, right? And this particular day, I had got a download to wear the beads. Now everything was cool in the gang. Okay, me wearing the beads in a car, that wasn't no problem. I think I was doing Uber this day, and me wearing the beads in the car was no problem at all. And I remember I was listening to Lantrell. Is it Landrell? Okay. Who made I'm Manifesting Money, right? Oh my goodness. If you guys don't know who Landrell is, I don't know what to tell you. Okay. But his music is absolutely amazing. Really, really good. He's a really good artist. And so I'm in a car, I'm listening to the music, and I also needed to get some canisters because to put herbs in. And so this download came to me, go inside of Target. Now, this Target I went to a few times. Okay. And the download said, go into Target. And I said, go into Target? Yeah, with the beads on. Yeah, go to Target with the beads on, these beads. Now you see these are really long. And it said, go into Target. And I said, go in Target. You know, and at this time I had this thing with myself, like, if you don't do it, you don't know how your life would have changed. And so I was always testing myself. All right, just go. Oh, honey, you talk about the fear. All these thoughts was coming in my mind. I wanted to hurry up and get this stuff in Target and hurry up and leave. I was so scared because, going into Target with these beads on, these big beads, I no, don't go into who wear all these thoughts, right? Start coming to me. Who wears stuff like this? You look like a freak. All this stuff came to me. And so I get into Target. I'm trying to avoid contact with people. I just want to get in and get out at this point. And I remember honey, my underarms itching thinking about it. Okay. I got online, right? And this is how amazing God is and how the universe, like the book, The Alchemist, okay, by Pablo Coelho, who says, when you follow your heart, the universe will conspire to work in your favor. I remember I'm online. Okay. Nobody said anything to me about the beads and stuff. Nobody came. I just wanted to get in and get out. I'm in Target. Just want to get in and get out. Okay. But before me getting into Target, it was like the force self, the ego was telling me all these different things. Oh, people going to see you with the beads. They going to laugh at you. You're going to look like a freak. All this different stuff. Okay. And I witnessed this so many times. When you follow your heart, God always sends you somebody to, to confirm, that you are surrounded by love. And as I'm online and I have these beads, I never forgot. It was these two young ladies that was ahead of me, right? Older than me. And I was online and I put the canisters up, right? The mason jars up on a conveyor belt, right? So they could be scanned. And one of them turned around to me and said, oh, what you using those for? Right? The mason jars. Now, mind you, I didn't want to make no eye contact. I didn't want to talk to nobody because the monkey in the mind was telling me that I was going to look like a freak. Okay, going inside Target with these big long beads on. Who does this? That's what the monkey in the mind was telling me. And so I said, I was a little nervous, I said, oh, this is for herbs and stuff. And they said, oh, you do herbs and stuff? And I said, well, yeah, because at that time I sold a few things, the herbs and stuff like that. I have a whole collection in the kitchen and stuff with so many different herbs. And they said, oh, cool. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm on social media. And they was like, oh, what's your name and stuff? And they put my name in. As soon as they put my name in, it came up, right? And they was like, we're going to follow you, right? And behind me, it was this lady that was from India. Okay. And she had her daughter with her. And she goes, oh, you have, I think they call it Rishki. I forgot the name of them, but these beads, okay. And she said, oh my goodness, you have those. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, we will wear those back home, right? And then I tell you, had God got you, okay? She said, we will wear those back home. And she said, I was just telling my daughter, that we will wear those beads back home. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And she said, they really nice, right? The beads and stuff. And she was like, I haven't seen I haven't seen those in a long time. right? And it just confirmed that, when you get that download, that intuition, that gut feeling that may tell you to wear the beads around people that you never met before, go inside the store, and you may have the chatter in your mind telling you you're a freak. People gonna look at you, they gonna laugh at you. One of the things that I notice about the false self and the ego, the monkey mind, whatever you want to call it, it always over exaggerate. Okay, like it always over exaggerate. It tells you all this stuff, and when you follow your heart, none of that stuff happens. None of it. It was telling me, you go inside Target, people gonna think you a freak. I mean, people thought I was a freak, they ain't say nothing to me about it, okay? But it tells you all these different things. People gonna think you're crazy. They gonna look at you, they gonna laugh at you. It tells you all this stuff. And when you follow your heart and you listen to the intuition, you listen to God, none of those things happen. None of those things happen. And so there's constantly thing where is though the force self, those belief systems that you grew up with, they are constantly going to try to tell you not to do this. God said for you to open a business. And you because you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you say, I'm not going to open that business. Who will buy from me? Well, if God didn't have everything set up, then you wouldn't ever got the download to open a business. Okay? And if you are thinking, right, like, it's so many people that they say they want more money, not realizing that money is an idea, not realizing that, if you want more, when those ideas come to you, you have to act on them. You have to act on the ideas. And there's way more than enough to go around for all of us. But as long as you say, something is telling me to open up a business, but I don't know nobody that's going to purchase my stuff. And you're going to have the chatter in your mind that's going to tell you you're not good enough. You don't deserve it. You don't know enough. That's why oftentimes people take so much information on, like an information junkie. I was once upon a time, I would keep buying books. And basically the books, they all said the same exact damn thing. Believe in yourself. Okay. What you constantly focus on, what you constantly give your attention to, that's what's going to constantly show up in your life. And they pretty much all said the same exact thing. But I was like, oh my goodness, I need more information. I need more information. I need more information. And as long as I was looking for and seeking for more information, it's like oftentimes we tend to do this, keep seeking and searching for more information, keep buying the books, keep buying these different things. It's like, because you don't believe in what you already have. So that's why you keep on, buying this and buying it, because you don't believe. Because if you believed it, like the person that keep on buying shoes all the time. I was a shoe fanatic. I remember my oldest children, my oldest daughter, my oldest children, they had pretty much the same teachers, right? My oldest children. And I remember my oldest daughter, she said that the teacher, and I was cool with this teacher, she said, your mother must have so many different shoes. I was buying all these shoes and buying all these things because I felt like I wasn't enough. Let me get another pair of shoes. Let me get another. And there's nothing wrong with, buying things. But when you feel like these things matter more than you, or these things are going to have you feel like you're enough, you're worthy, right? Then that's when a problem sets in. So what do you take from this? Okay. One, that when you hear that voice, okay, that tells you to do something, follow your intuition, you know, go to this place, and you're like, but I don't know, I don't know anyone here. Listen to it. When you hear that voice that says open your own business, and you like, well, who's gonna buy from me? Don't worry about that. There's a reason why God is telling you to open your own business. And to ask for more money and not be willing to show up is foolishness, because money is an idea. Everything that we see, right? This table, for instance, it first became an idea in someone else's mind. All right, let me put this piece or these materials together and create this type of table. It was an idea that into turned into money. Okay, but money is an idea. And so whenever you feel afraid, and fear is not something to be afraid of. Fear is to just acknowledge it. Fear isn't good or bad. Fear is just to be acknowledged. Why do you feel that way? These are some of the questions that you have to ask yourself. So my oldest son, he do deliveries, right? He's a truck driver. And oftentimes he go to different states. And I remember when he goes to different states, one of the things that would show up in me would be fear. Because I'm going to different Dollar Trees, inside of different Dollar Trees, And before I go in there would be a voice that's saying, you don't know nobody in there. You don't know nobody in there. Stay your booty in that truck. Okay, you don't know nobody in there. And oftentimes I take the leap out on faith and I just go inside the different ones. And I just keep recording just like I'm at the one by my house. But it's not that fear don't show up. It shows up. And I acknowledge it. And one of the things that I got from ChatGPT was this. ChatGPT is like a therapist, right? ChatGPT said this, whenever you feel fear, right? Acknowledge it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to say, it is not there, because honey, whatever you suppress it progress. So you acknowledge it and you tell your body that you are safe. Okay, that you are safe. And just last week, I'm in Boston. Okay. Was it Boston or Baltimore? And I'm in Baltimore, and it was this Wawa's that was literally across the street. My oldest son is delivering for Dollar Tree, and it was this Wawa literally across the street. And I got a download. Go to the Wawa. I wanted something from Wawa, and the download can't go to the Wawa. And there I am. Nah, how you bargain with yourself? Nah, I'm not going to get nothing. Some people say, oh, I'm on a diet. Okay, so they won't do the challenge because they afraid, because their fear show up, and you have the ability to get into it, jump into it, okay? Do a countdown like Mel Robinson say, okay? Mel Gibson, I think her last name, says do the backwards count, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You have the ability to do that and jump into the fear. Okay, but fear is not leaving. As long as you suppress it, it's not gonna leave. It just gets bigger. And so one of the things that wound up happening was, I get the download, go over there, go to the Wawa. And I say, nah, bargaining with myself, nah, who needs Wawa, right? I don't want anything right now. And it was so loud, okay? Not loud in a sense like the way I'm speaking, but loud in a sense like the gut feeling, like go to the Wawa. And oftentimes you don't know why your intuition is telling you to do this and do that. And then it's called something trust. Trust. You know? You have trust. You trust the process. You trust that your intuition is guiding you in the right direction. You trust it. You trust God. You know that God is always going to deliver. You know that. And so I get, I'm about to cross the street and I get out of the truck and the fear is there just by going to the Wawa. And a part of me is like, well, I could do a video, right? I could do a live video on Facebook. But instead, I'm crossing the street and as I get into Wawa, right? The fear is start dissipating, start going down. Why? Because I did something. Now, if you're a person that says you want to level up in self-confidence, you want to level up, and the best way to manifest is confident. You got to have confidence to manifest. You got to have confidence, and the best way to get the confidence is to challenge yourself. When, as so many times I did things I was afraid to do them. But when I did them, guess what? The confidence, it goes up so high. You walk like, yeah, I did that. You be so excited. Yeah, I did that. I overcame the forced version of myself. I overcame the programming, right? And every day you're gonna be faced with this. You're okay. And it's not about you being in a rush. It's not about you, saying, well, I got to get rid of this program or whatever it is. One of the things in this book, okay, the 11 Forgotten Laws by Raymond Howell, one of the things he says in this book is, let me see if I can find it. Wait. As we build up warmth, the cold disappears. For example, if we are cold, we do not work with cold and heat alike in order to get warm. We build a fire, and as we gather around that fire, we enjoy the heat that is extended from it, and we become warm. As we build up warmth, the cold disappears. For cold is the absence of heat. To be warm, we give our whole thought to those things which tend to create warmth. We ignore the cold in thinking of heat and bring forth heat. Prosperity and poverty are not two things, they are merely two sides of one and the same thing. They are but one power, rightly or wrongly used. We cannot think of plenty and then worry about the unfavorable conditions that may seem apparent. Okay, so you can't think that, God got you, and then throughout the day you thinking you don't have enough. You can't. And so many religious people do this. They ask for something, they ask God for something while worrying or thinking that they're not deserving or thinking that they're not going to get it. You can't occupy two seats at one time. Okay, it's either one or the other. All right. And so I had the ability in that moment to think like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the Wawa. I'm gonna go to this different store and I'm gonna record. Or I had the ability to sit in the truck and just say, let me tell you something. This occurred. So when my oldest son go to 4 different stores, and this just happened this week. This just happened Friday. The fourth version, the monkey in a mind, and I already did, I think at this time, 1 store. The monkey in the mind is telling me, don't do the other two. You got enough. You got enough content. Don't go to the other stores. And a part of me is like, you're right. You're right. I got enough of content. I don't need to go to the other stores. And then is that voice, that subtle voice. You here already. Go to the other stores and see what they have inside. And let me tell you something. I thought that I was a little afraid. Honey, I was everywhere. my son was delivering. Honey, I was, and at this time we was in Philly. I was everywhere. I was in a Walmart, okay, walking around in a Walmart. Now that Walmart was really crowded, to say the least. I was in a Walmart asking the employees at the Walmart, where was this at? Where was that at? Getting out of the comfort zone. After I went to the Walmart, I went to the Aldi, okay, just walking around, walking the whole plaza, all right, going into different stores, and that's how you are going to get out of your comfort zone. That's how you're going to start growing. A lot of times people, they operating in so much fear that they don't even give themselves a chance to get out of the comfort zone. They don't even give themselves a chance to meet new people or be around different people. And for you to think, okay, that your life is going to change and you continuously do the same exact thing, honey, I am here to tell you, your life will forever be the same, because you have to do something different, and at first, that chatter in my mind, I wanted to get something from Walmart. And at first, I'm like, oh, I'm in Philly. I don't know nobody, at this Walmart. I don't know nobody there. And as I walk across the parking lot and I get inside the Walmart. Now, people was looking, right? They was looking. Maybe because I had that bold red lipstick on. I don't know. Okay, but as I get inside the Walmart, and it's very crowded. Oh my goodness, there's so many people in there. Okay, and I went to the bathroom, and after I came from the bathroom, I said, you know what? Let me explore a little. Let me see what they got up in here. I start recording right inside of Walmart. Just pull the phone out, start recording. And as I was recording, I said, oh, let me go here. Let me look at this and let me see what else they have, right? And I got content, okay? I got content. And I was recording inside, let me tell you guys this, because I used to have this feeling, right? And this is like this is where studying comes in. And when I say studying, I study, like I read, and also I listen to personal development. And if you are unaware, right, then you're going to keep on doing the same thing based upon ignorance. And all of us are ignorant to a certain degree, okay? But no matter where you go, you are going to meet people that are a reflection of you, no matter where you go. Okay. So I remember one time this had showed up. Okay. I love taking long rides. Okay. Because it's like therapeutic for me. I love going on long rides. I like getting lost. Okay. I like that because it's like you explore different things. Okay. You see different parts of, where you live, or, different cities that you perhaps didn't even know existed if you didn't get out of your comfort zone or whatever. So I always like taking long rides. Okay. I don't like going to the same exact places. I don't care if it's a Trader Joe's down the street from me. I want to go to the Trader Joe's that's like 2 hours away from me. I just like that. There's just something in me. Okay. And I remember this one day, me and my two oldest children was together. And this particular day, I said, you know what, let's go to Boston, right? I was going to a vegan restaurant. Didn't know nobody in Boston. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thanks for the gifts. I didn't know anyone in Boston, but I was going to a vegan restaurant. And I noticed when the idea first came up, a little nervousness came up, a little fear presented itself because I didn't know nobody over there. And this idea came to me from hearing this, okay? People are generally the same. Once you get past culture, people are the same. That's one. Two, no matter where you go, if you are a kind person, you are going to be met with kindness. If you are a person that's full of anger, you're going to be met with people that's full of anger. And it put me in the mind of the story that Wayne Dyer, okay, talked about when he was on Millionaire. Okay, he said Regis was his girlfriend, and he said he never forgot when he went. I don't know if he just was, I don't know if he was a contestant. I don't think so, but I remember he said that he went to Millionaire, whatever it is, and you remember the TV show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? But anywho, Wayne Dyer said he met two women, right? One lady was from Chicago, I believe. And one, I think, was from New York. And both women, okay, one lady asked him, like, because I think he just moved over there or something. They asked him, like, oh, so how's Chicago or whatever? And he asked them, like, well, how's Chicago? No, they said, how do you like it here? And he asked them, instead of answering the question, he said, how do you like it here? And one lady said, everybody's in a rush. Everybody is like dismissive. Everybody is looking out for themselves. And she was saying that's how the people in New York is. And instead of Wayne Dyer saying, well, the people aren't like that, he said, that's exactly how the people here are. They dismissive. They in a rush. Okay. They unkind, unruly. Like, that's exactly how they are here. And then he met this other young lady. And this young lady, she said, so how do you like it here? And he asked her, how you like it here? And she said, all the people, she talked about her old town, right? And I think it was Chicago or something. One was from New York and one was from Chicago. Okay. And this lady, she said, I think she was from Chicago. She said, oh, the people are generous. They are loving. They are kind. I'm really going to miss it there. And Wayne Dyer said, this is exactly how the people are here. They are just like that. And as I went to Boston that day, I thought about that. Like, you are met with exactly yourself. The people that you meet, they just a reflection of yourself. And you take your energy everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, you take your energy with you. You don't leave your energy at home. You take it with you. So if you look at yourself and you say, I am worthy, I am kind, I am deserving, I am a loving person, and you know that, not believe it, you know that. Where you go, it will reflect that. So if you get in relationships, okay, it's never to blame the other person, but be grateful for the other person. because they just reflecting back to you exactly what you are or what you feel to be true about yourself. If you feel like you don't deserve love, or you have to, in order for you to receive love, you have to bend over backwards. You have to be a people pleaser. It's going to reflect it, and that's why oftentimes you may always try to be a people pleaser. Oftentimes you may always try to, do the right thing, so to speak, because you feel like this person could give you love. And let me tell you something, what I know to be true. If you feel like you don't have love, or if you feel like you're not good enough, you only gonna meet people that's operating on the same exact frequency as you. You're not going to you won't even be able to receive someone that are in tune with themselves, that know that they are loved. They don't have to seek for love. They don't have to bargain for love, you know? And if you bargain it, I remember I used to do this a lot, you know? I said I was going on Facebook, but I remember I used to do this. I would get in these relationships with these guys. And I remember I would bargain for love. The coffee's so good, honey, it's bad. But I remember I would bargain for love. I would say, if you do this, if you help me out around the house, then we can make love or something. Right? That's what I was. If you help me, if you do this, if you help me out around the house, okay, then this will occur. All right. If you take the garbage out, and it was like bargaining, because subconsciously I was feeling like I can't just ask for something and just receive it. Okay. Subconsciously, you have this going on subconsciously. You think you can't ask for something, just receive it. And so you would bargain. You would make deals, If I give you this, will you love me more? If I be a good person to you, will you love me more? It's like you're making all these different bargains. But what I come to realize is true love. You don't have to make all these bargains. And if you are with somebody and you have to try to change that person, then that's a relationship where, as though, it's like false hope, right? It's like, you don't accept them. This book right here, The Four Agreements, and this other one. Hold on. This book right here. All right. Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. Now, these are Don Miguel Ruiz books. When I tell you they are so amazing, they are so good. In this book, hopefully I can find it. But in this book, it talks about how oftentimes, okay, when you meet a person, now this is the perfect relationship, it's called. Okay. Matter of fact, let's start from here. All right. The dog is responsible for its half of the relationship with you. One half of the relationship is completely normal. The dog's half. When you come home, it barks at you, it wags its tail, it pants because it is so happy to see you. It does its part very well. And you know it is the perfect dog. Your part is almost perfect also. You handle your responsibility. You feed your dog. You take care of your dog. You play with your dog. You love your dog unconditionally. You will do almost anything for your dog. You do your part perfectly, and your dog does its part perfectly. Most people can easily imagine this kind of relationship with their dog, but why not with a woman or with a man? Do you know any woman or any man who is not perfect? The dog is a dog, and that is okay with you. You don't need to be responsible for your dog to make it be a dog. The dog doesn't try to make you be a good human, a good master. Then why can't we allow a woman to be a woman or a man to be a man and love that human just the way he or she is without trying to change that person? Okay. Remember what I said about um Eckhart Tolle, the author of the book The Power of Now. One of the things Eckhart Tolle said was when he was growing up, his father was very mean. Well, angry. His father had a real anger problem. And he would often take his anger and frustration out on Eckhart Tolle's mother. And as Eckhart Tolle, like his teenage years, he had some type of resentment towards his father because of the anger. And he said when he grew up to be an adult and became, aware and enlightened, he said he no longer would try to get his father to change. He accepted that his father was angry. And so what he would do was, instead of him going to his father's house and saying, "Oh, Dad, you should change," and stuff, he accepted his father for exactly how his father was. So if he went to the father's house and the father was angry or whatever, he wasn't saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be angry. You should be a more nice and kind and gentle person." No. What he did was he would put on politics. And all right, I'm going to take a screenshot. Okay. So this is The Mastery of Love. Okay. So this is the first one by Don Miguel Ruiz. This book is a great read for if you have any type of resentment or anger towards your parents or towards anyone for that matter, or felt like this person should have did a better job. Okay. This is the book. Okay. Because what this book shows you is people can only give you what they have. And instead of trying to change the person or wanting them to be something that perhaps they can't be. Like I had a friend, she would complain about this guy all the time. And I said to her one day, I said, you know what the problem is? You want this guy to be like in the ninth grade when he have demonstrated time and time again he's only in the eighth. And basically what I was saying was that where this guy is subconsciously, right? The unawareness. This guy, he doesn't see, like you saying, oh, he's cheating, that's wrong and stuff. And one day I asked her, I say, if this guy is doing all this stuff you say he's doing, he's a cheater, he's a liar, okay? He's all these different things. I said to her, I said, he's doing all these different things. He's just the most evilest person that has ever existed. And, your opinion. Then why you stay? If he's so bad, he's a cheater, he's a liar. You keep talking about what he's doing to, why you stay then? And you know what she said to me? She said, why he stay? And I said, because sometimes you got to tell your friends, well, all the time, you got to tell your friends exactly what they don't want to hear. And I'm just that one friend that I'm not going to go along with you. Like, I'm going to say stuff that is going to sting. It's going to hurt, you know? And it's all going to how you take it. But I'm speaking from a place of love, okay? And I do the same thing with my children. Same exact thing. And so she goes on and she says, why he stay? And I said to her, I said, he's not complaining, calling people complaining about you. I highly doubt it. I said, but you complaining about this guy. This guy you still stay with. I mean, y'all share an apartment together and you keep complaining about him. Why you stay? And her only response is, well, if he don't like it, he could leave. You the one that's complaining. It's not him. He's having his cake, ice cream, cookies, donuts, and eating it too. Eating it all up. You have to ask yourself, why do you stay? And this was one of the books that woke me up. I remember so vividly, so clear. When I started reading this book, it was a guy I was in a relationship with. I started reading this book. And it got me to understand that me and this guy, we was going in two different directions. Okay. I had started doing work on myself, right? I started changing my belief systems. And it woke me up. And this is the same guy that would say, go read a book. Oh, I was reading. Okay. I read this book so good that we can't be together. Because our beliefs, when I met him, I was operating in a sense of scarcity, lack, not feeling like I was worthy, experiencing a lot of anxiety, self-esteem was low, operating from a place of what I had that equated to who I was, and that's basically what it was. And when I started doing the work on myself, okay, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of getting the same exact results. I started doing the work on myself. And I remember it was days he would say, go read a book. And I would feel very offended, okay, trying to call me slow. And I would get the books. I would get the book, not because he said get the books, but I remember hearing Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters. Okay, shout out to Infinite Waters. I remember hearing Infinite Waters, who's a YouTuber. And I remember one day he talked about this book so good. And it was this book. Hold on. I know you guys like, oh my goodness. Wait, hold on, child. Because if I could give you something that's going to help you change your perception or get you to think different, I'm fine. It was this book right here, The Alchemist. This is my second time buying a second Alchemist by Pablo Coelho. And I remember Infinite Water talked about this book. And I would watch Infinite Water's videos, okay? And my first book was this, like when it came to inspiration or the universe and stuff, it was The Alchemist. And then here, to realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation. To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation. To realize your destiny is your obligation. Okay. What are you here for? And this is this book, Three Magic Words by Ura Anderson. And in that book, okay, all the people who I have come across videos and I watched their lectures, whether it was Dr. Miles Monroe or whether it was rapper B.O.B. Okay. All right. All these different people who I have come across, what I realized there was a connection, even Nipsey Hussle, okay? It was questions that they had, they would say. And in his book, The Power of the Three Magic Words by Ura Anderson, I remember reading that book and those same exact questions was in that book, We want to know, no matter whether it's a person that sleeps under the bridge or someone that lives in a penthouse, we want to know what's our purpose? Why are we here? Okay. Why were we created? Where are we going? And in that book, it talked about all of this. Okay. But this book was the book that I started off with, The Alchemist. And it was so profound. At times I would read this and I would get emotional, okay? Because it talks about the kid, the shepherd boy, Diego, okay, who was searching for treasure outside himself. He went different places seeking a treasure outside himself. And realizing later that the treasure was always within. Okay, the treasure is always within. And so this book was the first one. Then this book, Don Miguel Ruiz books are, to me, they are really, really amazing. Absolutely loved his books. And here, let me finish this, okay? Now, this was the part that made me see that my younger self wanted to stay in this relationship while my spirit knew that the relationship was over. My spirit knew the relationship. And now oftentimes, it could be a job, it can be anything. You outgrown it. But it's a part of you that you want to stay there because it's the comfort zone. It's like, if I leave, what would happen? And oftentimes people, they stay in certain situations because they think that's the best that they can have. They think that's the best that they can do. I remember I kept saying, I'm going to go full time on YouTube. I'm going to go full time. And I remember I had told my mother, right? I told my mother, I said, I'm going to go full time on YouTube. I'm not doing Uber or Lyft any longer. Not that they was bad jobs. I absolutely loved it. I loved connecting with the different passengers. I never seen a day in my life, okay? And only to realize that we had so much in common. And I remember when I told my mother, okay, probably act of reason. I remember I told my mother, and my mother said to me, she said, Dina, you like going places. how you gonna stop doing Uber and Lyft? Where would you have the money from? Where would you get the money from to go to these different places? You like going out? And I like going to different restaurants. I like the experience of things, different things, new things, nice things. Okay. And I remember I just got finished watching Shay Greenwood, I think, Lachey Greenwood, who was a school teacher. And I remember I was so inspired by her video. I was in the tub. I was inspired by her video. I was even crying because she just quit her job of being a teacher to pursue opening up a hair care line, her own business. And I remember she said she told her mother, and her mother wasn't like as open, Basically, her mother was saying the same thing as my mother. But when I told my mother, I was so excited, like, oh my, I'm gonna just pursue YouTube. I started a YouTube channel back in 2018. Okay. And I said, oh my, I'm a do the YouTube thing. I'm gonna just do YouTube full time. I didn't know how to really edit. I didn't know too much about creating the thumbnails. If you go to my older videos, those thumbnails, they have so many words on a thumbnail. I think they say you only need like 3 words. Honey, while I was putting like 8 or 9 words on a thumbnail. Okay, now. And I didn't know none of this. I didn't know what I know now. And my mother said to me, she said, how you gonna do this? You like going places. Where you gonna get the money from? And at this time, I had my income tax that I just received. And it was probably like, what, 10,000 that I received. And my mother said, well, if you believe in this idea so much, then don't touch your income tax money, right? If you believe, now I'm on Section 8, I really don't have to do, Uber or Lyft, okay? But I always wanted more, And my mother, she says, don't touch it. And I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna touch it, okay? And I remember, I started questioning myself. And I never forgot, I made a video. I was standing in a corner in my living room and I made a video to myself and I was crying. I felt the emotions. And it basically was like a future video that, Dina, I'm so happy you stuck with it. You believed in yourself enough to keep on going, right? And now you this big YouTube or whatever it was. And I remember feeling all those emotions. And so for the few months, I was in doing Uber, okay? I was touching my income tax money, okay? And I remember me and my mother, I started being like kind of distant from my mother, okay? Because a part of me felt like, you don't believe, And it's not for the person that you may be telling your dreams to. It's not for them to believe, it's for you to believe. Because the vision, it was given to you, it was not given to them. And sometimes if you know that the people don't believe, or if you're gonna tell them something, they gonna tell you can't do it. My mother wasn't telling me I couldn't do it. She just was like, well, how you gonna do that, right? Then oftentimes it's not good for you to tell them because they don't see it. And if somebody don't believe in themselves, think that they have what it takes, then they could never see it for you. And I kept on, like after a few months, I went back to Uber. And I sort of put YouTube on the back burner. And when I put YouTube on the back burner, this is what I mean when I say that you outgrown that job or that relationship. When I went back to Uber, it became like a hustle thing. Like, all right, I got to pay bills. I got to do, And I still had money, but I just felt like, I got to pay bills. I got this. No, I got this. I got to do that. All these different things, couldn't take a break. I remember it so vividly and clear. This one particular day, it was raining. I was watching something on Netflix And I did not want to get up. I did not want to go do Uber. It was raining. I had cramps, menstrual cramps, and I just didn't want to get up. But it was something in me that was like, work hard, go, you gotta go do it. And the day that I went to go do it, the card that I had, it was finito. It was going, it was like it just cut off. Okay. I did a few deliveries, and when I was on my way back home, the car, it just like it started going backwards and everything. It was messed up. And oftentimes we ask God for certain things, and we may say, God, well, I want this house, or I want this, I want a better. And let me tell you something. Don't think that you're not going to be met with obstacles, because you will. You will. And the car, and then it's like, now you have no other choice. Now you're gonna do it. Okay. Now you're gonna do it. And I started doing YouTube. I was more consistent, started showing up more. Okay. But if and oftentimes you may do this subconsciously. You may not show up, or you may feel like, but I'm gonna continue to do, or I'm gonna have a backup plan. I'm gonna do this, and I'm also gonna do that. Sometimes God is saying, you need to do this, right? There's a calling. There's a calling. And you listening to people that ignored their calling. Okay, they ignored their calling because out of fear. And you listening to them say, you can't do that. Or how things are going to work out, right? They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's really where faith comes in. Like, to know that you are good. To know that God isn't going to give you this idea for you to fail. Like, God isn't going to tell you to write a book so people won't buy it. So people won't read it. Come on, So, mastery of love. Perhaps you are thinking, but what if I'm not with the right woman or the right man? That is a very important question. Of course, you have to choose the right woman or the right man. And what is the right woman or the right man? Someone who wants to go in the same direction as you do. Someone who is compatible with your views and your values emotionally, physically, economically, and spiritually. How do you know if your partner is right for you? Let's imagine that you are a man and a woman is going to choose you. If there are 100 women looking for a man, and each will look at you as a possibility, for how many of these women will you be the right man for? The answer is you don't know. This is why you need to explore and take the risk. But I can tell you that the right woman for you is the woman you love, just the way she is. The woman you don't have the need to change at all. That's the right woman for you. You are lucky if you find the right woman for you, and at the same time, you are the right man for her. You are going to be the right man for her if she loves you just the way you are, and she doesn't want to change you. She doesn't have to be responsible for you. She can trust that you are going to be what you claim you are, what you project you are. She can be as honest as possible and project to you what she is. She will not come to you pretending to be something that you later discover she is not. The one who loves you just the way you are. Because if someone wants you to change, if someone wants to change you, it means you are not what that person wants. Then why is she with you? It's easy to love your dog because your dog doesn't have opinions about you. The dog loves you unconditionally. This is important. Then if your partner loves you just the way you are, it is just like the dog loves you. You can be yourself with your partner. You can be a man or you can be a woman, just the way the dog can be a dog with you. You don't try to change your dog into being a cat. You accept your dog for being a dog. You don't say to the dog, why don't you meow? Okay? You don't say to the cat, why don't you bark? Because you accept your dog and your cat for exactly who they are. And that's how I knew the relationships that I was in, right? That they wasn't for me. You know? Like I had the experience that I had to go through that and see that you trying to change these people instead of doing the work on yourself. You know, oftentimes we try to take a shortcut, right? We want other people to change. And oftentimes you don't want to do the work on yourself. And in the words of Wayne Dyer, one of the things he says is you don't go to your physician and say, I need a prescription for my mother-in-law. Okay. Because you know that that doctor is going to laugh you out of the office. Okay. You look at yourself and you say, what do I need to change? So the people who have exes, okay, I could always tell, like if I meet a guy and a guy talks about his ex a certain type of way, right? Like, oh, this ex. And by the way, I haven't met any guys that talk about their ex like trash. I haven't met none. Like, you know, since the whole natural thing and everything like that, they all have something positive to say about their ex. But if you meet someone and that person is going on and on talking about their ex and saying how they hate their ex, how their ex was a good for nothing, okay, how they ex, you know, was stupid and, you know, all these different negative things. You don't say argue with them, but just know that date is over after that, okay? Because what they said about their ex, they're going to say the same thing about you. Okay. And oftentimes it comes from a place where as though that chapter isn't closed, you know, it's not closed because in their mind subconsciously, they felt that the person should be better. Okay. Without understanding that they would have found somebody that were what they truly desired. They would have found somebody that they truly desired if they was like that. You can't ask for someone to be, well, I want this person to love me. But in the back of your mind, you feel like you don't deserve love. Because what happened when you was a child? You feel like you're not good enough for love. Oh, because your mama or your daddy left you or abandoned you, you feel? This book, okay? The Mastery of Love. Okay? If you have this concept, oh, you wanted the other books. Okay. So the Four Agreements, I talked about this last time. I think you know about this Act of Reason. The Four Agreements, same exact author. And Don Miguel Ruiz has other books that are, I'm quite sure, just as good. But I have two of his books, and these are really profound. Absolutely love them. Now, the next book is Working with the Law by Raymond Howell. Now, in this book, it pretty much talks about the laws of the universe. Okay. The laws of this here universe was not created by man, so they cannot be changed by man. And when I first heard that statement, it was so profound because up until that, I always thought that man was in control of my life. And I would say, oh yeah, I believe in God and stuff like that. But, and even at times I would question my relationship with God. Okay. Like, you know, how could this stuff go on? And God loves me and all this other stuff. You know, why I feel this way, why I feel that way, why I go through this with family members. And not understanding that I had, okay, Working with the Law by Raymond Howell, The 11 Forgotten Laws. Really good book. Absolutely phenomenal. If you guys go on my Amazon, I had said this before, there's a link in my bio on here on YouTube. And it says Amazon. If you go on my Amazon, is books that I have in there that I read that I highly recommend. Okay, like the Prosperity Bible. What else? The Power of the Subconscious Mind by uh dang it, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I can't think of the author, but The Power of the Subconscious Mind. The Prosperity Bible. Which other ones I have? I have a few on there, but if you go on that link, you will see the books that I recommend. The Prosperity Bible is a thick book, but it has so many different authors in that one book. Highly recommended. It has authors in there like James Allen, Florence Shen, Maxwell Modes, Charles Hannell, just to name a few. It's really a good book. It talks about metaphysics. It talks about you believing in yourself, that what you constantly think of, what you constantly give energy to, that's what shall show up in your life. You have the power to change your life, okay? Oh, and this is the other book, Trust, okay? Now, this book is really, really good. Now, a few of these books, when I read them, I did cry, okay? Books are like movies, okay? I love books because is you create in your mind, like you use your imagination a lot, to create different characters and to see the characters the way, you envision them. It's really good. But this is Mastering the Four Essentials. Mastering the Four Essential Trust, okay? Trusting yourself, trusting God, trusting others, and trusting life. And one of the things that this book talks about, trust and life. I mean, trust in others. When people show you who they are, you trust, you believe it, okay? Now, if you have a father, right? If your father has always broke his promise, right? Like he'll say, well, you know what? We gonna have lunch Tuesday. And if he always been this person that always break his promises, right? Ever since you was a kid, he's been doing this, saying he's gonna pick you up. He never picked you up. Or he'll pick you up a different time, right, than what he said. And as a kid growing up, you start thinking like, oh my goodness, my father is always lying. He's always telling me this and he does the opposite. And when you become an adult and your father is still making arrangements with you, telling you, oh, let's have lunch tomorrow, and your father don't show up, it comes a point in time you accept that your father is the way he is. He doesn't keep his word. He's unreliable, and you accept that. You and to try to change him and to try to say, well, my father ought to be different. He's my father. Just because he has the title of father, you're gonna do yourself a disservice. Okay. Like I remember this one young lady who was on here, on YouTube, and she would write, different things about her mother. And she would say like her mother wasn't there for any of her children, and how she would really want her mother to be there. She wanted her mother to do something that her mother demonstrated time and time again that she was incapable of doing it at that moment. Not meaning that maybe she'll never be able to do it, but at that moment she showed and reflect like she's incapable. Okay. And she said, I don't know why my mother keep doing this. We love her, and she don't be there for us and stuff. Well, it comes a point in time where as though you have to start doing that stuff for yourself. Okay. If you want your mother to do something for you, and if she demonstrated time and time again that she just can't do it, okay, because of the belief systems, right? If you growing up, like last night, I was in a truck with my son, and one of the things that I tell him, I say, if I knew better, okay, when I was raising you and, you know, yes, sister, my oldest daughter. If I knew better, right, then I would have did better. But a person cannot give you oranges if all they have is apples. And as long as you hold on to resentment, and as long as you say, well, my parents should have did better, how you know that if your parents would have done different, how you know that your life would have been better? It could have been it could have been screwed up worse. Okay, I'm not saying your life is screwed up, but how do you know that? You don't know. You don't know if your life if your mother or your daddy was there or whatever, you don't know if your life would have been better. But what you do know is that the way you grew up, you have the ability to say, I know I grew up this way, but I don't have to stay this way. Right? Like if you grew up in poverty, I knew I grew up in poverty. I knew I grew up in the projects, but I'm allowed to want more. You know, I deserve more. It's all according to what you know. You know, but you don't know if your parents was so to speak better, if your life would have been better. You don't know that. And so I have this conversation big with my oldest son is and I told my oldest daughter this too. I said, you guys have to reprogram yourself because the programming I gave you is wrong. It's outdated. It don't work. It's wrong. Okay. And you have to reprogram yourself. You know, and we don't do things as parents to say, you know what, I just want to mess my children all up. Just even if it's a parent out there that says, you know, I'm gonna screw these kids up, which I highly believe that's not it. Okay, we think that we giving our children the best that we could give. Okay, and it comes a point in your life, like if you have someone that you just feel like they just couldn't show you love, right, for whatever reason or another. You know, maybe they grew up hearing that they was a reject, that they was a reject, they was a good for nothing, that they had never amount to anything. And you're like, well, why my mother won't be a better mother, right? You get so fixated on TV and say, well, this is what my mother should be like, you know. But you don't know your mother's background. Now, I'm not making excuses or justifications, but oftentimes when you go back, right, and you ask your mother or your father, like, how was your upbringing, you know? And oftentimes, sometimes they would go into there, you know, like they would tell you that they father probably said that they was a reject, that they was a good for nothing, you know, all these different things. And then there you are, you thinking like, Mo, my mother should have been better. How could you people, when I say ignorance, like we are all ignorant to a degree, okay? We don't know what we don't know. And so how could they give you something different if they got playing in the subconscious mind that they're good for nothing? So how they gonna give you because they so unaware. Like it was so many times I would say, I'm not yelling at my children. I'm just not going to yell at them. You know, it's not good for their self-esteem. You know, it breaks their confidence. I'm just not going to do it. And oftentimes I would catch myself yelling. Why? Unaware. Unaware. Bruce Lipton, he talks about this epigenetics, really, really good. He talks about how our environment is more important than our genetics, right? And what you constantly being around and stuff like that, it shapes you, okay, into the person that you are. And he talks about this so profound. And one of the things Bruce Lipton says, he says, you know, you can have a friend that you say, Jim, you are just like Jim is always complaining about his father. And you can say to Jim, Jim, you just like your father. And Jim is like, no, I'm not. I'm nothing like my father. Well, he don't realize he is like his father. He's so unaware. He's so unaware. He has a temper like his father. Okay. He just like his father, but so unaware. And so you can't change something if you can't change something that you are unaware of. And if you say it's hard, it's hard. Prime example, the other day I was on Facebook. And remember what I said, you have the ability to accept or reject certain things. So it was this content creator. Now, this content creator, I watch her, but she was doing like a green screen. And it was another content creator that was pretty much on Facebook. And she was saying like, she's so sick of these big time influencers, content creators that's selling all these courses, that's pretty much giving false hope to people, telling people that they can be a content creator and they just don't got it. Okay, that's what she said. That's what this other content creator. Now, this content creator who was doing a video and pretty much reacting to this other content creator, she was agreeing with her wholeheartedly. And this was a content creator that I watch every now and then. And the content creator who was talking on a green screen, she pretty much was saying like, people don't have it. You know, you buying all these courses, and if you copy somebody else's, like another content creator, you like, it's not going to work for you. And I said, what the hell is she talking about? And I disagreed with it because I don't want that to go. That's not going in my subconscious mind. I disagreed with it because, listen, I done took a few content creation classes that I paid out of pocket for. Okay. And the content creators, they have a larger following than me at this time. Okay. And they all say the same thing, that you create the content, success leaves clues. You imitate, okay? You imitate. So if you watching a content, say for instance that you say you want to be where this person is. You want the subscriber count, you want to earn the amount they earning, right? But you still want to stay true to yourself. Okay, that's very important. You got to stay true to yourself. And so you put your own twist on things. But all the content creators courses that I have taken, they all say the same thing. You pick 3 people, okay, that has a following of 10,000, a following of 100,000, and a following that's over 1 million. All right. And you look at their thumbnails, and those thumbnails that you see that they created, you go to their most popular video and you recreate the thumbnail. The title, it has to be, fairly the same. Okay. Because what it's going to do is, if the algorithm acknowledge that video as being the most popular video, you duplicate it. Okay, you recreate it. And yes, success leaves clues. It's not about you reinventing a wheel. It's about, so to speak, being a copycat, but not losing yourself and being true to yourself. Okay. And so this other content creator, she goes on, and I said, dang, you know how many people will watch this? And they would think that this content creator, she knows exactly what she's talking about. And so they may feel like they can't be a content creator, that they don't have what it takes. And the very next morning, it's so funny how God works, because the very next day, it was this other content creator that I started watching recently. And I think her name is Deck the Whores or something, or the Decor something. She's an older Italian lady. Love her content. Absolutely amazing. She do like Christmas trees and stuff like that. Go to different people's houses and do Christmas trees. But she talks about content too. And I wasn't looking for this. It just popped up. Okay. God is always sending you messages. And so she says, Recently, I came across this content creator that I watch, and this content creator was doing a reaction to this other content creator. And she said, I want you guys to know that you have what it takes. She said, I want you to know that there's something in each and every one of us, that we have gifts, that God has given something to each and every one of us. And she goes on and she says, is a content creator who talks about plants. And this content creator has over 1 million subscribers. 1 million people watches this content creator. And she said, that's not my thing. I'm not really interested in plants. But there are so many people that is interested in plants. And she goes on and she says, there's somebody for you. And I like to say that there's an audience for you. But your audience can't find you if you are hiding behind shyness. Oh, I'm too shy, If you are hiding behind, you don't think you have what it takes. If you are hiding behind, you're not worthy of it. If you hiding behind, I just need more information, okay? Your tribe is waiting to feel your vibe, but they can only feel your vibe if you show up. And there's something in you. God is, when you was created, God didn't say, all right, well, let me see. Dina has to went to college. She has to have all these accolades. And what? Man says that. Okay. Thanks. What is it? Crime scene girl. I appreciate what are they? Super chat. I think they super chats. I appreciate it. Okay. And God isn't saying all of that. That's man that says that. God isn't saying, well, you know what? In order for you to open up that business, you got to have the funds. God don't look at your bank account and say, well, you know what? You can't open that business. You don't even have the money. That is man. And that's your forced self telling you foolishness. That's your forced self. That's the ego. That's the monkey mind that's telling you all these lies. Okay. Is this artist, I know, amazing, do amazing work. I mean, absolutely amazing work. Okay. But some of the things that she'll say is she don't have time. You don't have time for this. You don't have time for that. You don't have time for this. And as long as you say you don't have time, isn't it funny how we make time for things? You make time for things. If you believed in yourself, you would make time for it. You would make time for it. Like I said, I was gonna be on. First of all, honey, I didn't even know what I was gonna talk about before I came on here. Okay. But the idea came from the sneakers about shame and all this other stuff. And then I said, all right. But that led from me trusting the process to then the idea started flowing. Okay. Then I started talking about the books. But I was opened enough. I don't have to have all the books or have all the words and stuff, like, oh, I need to know exact. No, you just show up. That's it. You show up. You show up without having all the information. You show up with, not knowing if it's going to work, but you still show up because you believe, And I go over my life, so many times, like the other day, and the forced self, I mean, let me tell you, it's going to tell you so many damn lies. Okay. It's really going to tell you lies. So the other day, I would have this going on subconsciously. All right. And it's not until you become aware that you are able to fix it. And when you're aware, don't beat yourself up. You don't say, well, I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be jealous. I shouldn't feel this way. No, you don't beat yourself. You acknowledge it. Why do I feel this way? Okay. And most of the time it's from ignorance. So the other day I was going to ShopRite. Okay. I was going to get some chocolate chip cookies for me and my youngest children. And as I was going to ShopRite, now before this, subconsciously, I had in my mind that I'm not good with selling. Right? I'm not good with selling. It was times in the past I tried to sell stuff and, so the forced self was telling me all this stuff. And then I had to go back, right? Now I done did several things while, being a content creator. I done did network marketing. I opened my own business, Universally Fit, got the LLC for, like, I did a few things. And the full self was telling me, the monkey in the mind was telling me all this stuff. Oh, you're not good at selling. And for one reason or another, this idea popped up in my mind when I was a kid. And I talked about this. When I was a kid, my cousin, okay, my girl cousin, she had got me some Bernstein Bears books. Okay. It was about four or five books. And I remember having those books. And I always wanted more money when I was a kid. Like, I always wanted more. And I remember I had these books and I liked the books, but I wanted money for the books. Okay. And so I sold those books so quick. And I got in trouble for it. Of course, I got in trouble for it because, why would you sell them books and we brought the books, right? Most likely I sold the books less than what they were, but I sold the books. And I don't know why that memory popped up in my mind, and this was a few days ago. The memory popped up. And I said, I am good at selling. I'm good at selling. I sold those kids those books. I may have got scolded and yelled at a lot, but I sold those books. And so the self, the monkey in the mind, is gonna tell you all this mess, all these lies. You're not good at this, you're not good at that, you're not good. And then if you go back and you analyze, but what about the other times I did this? It's for you to recognize, that's not true. Because it's gonna lie to you so much. The monkey in the mind is gonna tell you so many things. Your foresight is gonna tell you so many things. And you know what that is? That's chatter that you may have heard when you was a child, that you may have heard on the TV, right? That you may have heard from your teacher. Some people take on an identity that is hard to learn. You know where they heard that from? From a teacher telling them that it's hard for them to learn. And guess what? As an adult, they still take on that identity that is hard for them to learn, that they can't learn, and they walk around with this. They accepted this and they continuously accept it. Or they may have heard it from their parents, that they're reject, they don't deserve love. Who would ever love you? Right? And they walk around with it. And then they don't understand why they have people coming into their lives the way they do based upon subconsciously. If you ever want to know what's going on in your subconscious mind, okay, always pay attention to your results, because the results, they never lie. They never lie. The results. A great book is called by John Max. Is it? No, not John Maxwell. Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Phenomenal read. And he talks about a surgeon, okay, who talks about that we have two identities. Like, we have how we see ourselves, like we have the inside and the outside, okay? And this person that could have had all the plastic surgeries in the world, and they could still think that they don't look beautiful. They could still think that they're not enough. And no matter how many compliments they give, they may still think that they're not beautiful enough, because it's really how you see yourself in the inside, and it shows on the outside. Okay. So with that being said, I love you guys. Make sure you guys hype the video up, subscribe, comment, like. I remember it would be times I don't want to tell people to subscribe and stuff like that. That's all because you feel like you don't deserve it. That's why you won't tell them. That's why you won't make the sale, because you feel like you don't deserve it. You feel like, who are you to, the force, the ego would tell you, don't bother these people. Don't ask them for money, like basically like you begging. And every day we selling, each and every day we selling. Okay. So to the person that's out there, all right. Oh, thank you, Active Reason. I appreciate it. So look at yourself and know that you're worthy, you are loved, that you are deserving, and you are enough. Those worthy, you are loved, you are enough, okay? And you deserve it. You deserve the best of the best. You deserve it. Eh, you deserve, that's it. Okay, not because you have the accolades and all these no, God sees you and says you deserve it. Now the question becomes, do you know you deserve it? Do you know? Because if you know you deserve it, you will show up a certain type of way. And with that being said, I love you guys and catch you guys on the next one. Look, 3 hours I've been on here talking to you guys. All right. All right. Keep on going. Keep on growing. I love you guys. I don't know if it was from this coffee. Oh my goodness, honey. I don't know if it was from the coffee, but keep on going. All right. I believe in you. And I know that if it's possible for one, it's possible for many. Okay. God is not going to give certain people more than others. Okay. Because, these people is a different skin color, or these people grew up in a certain environment. Let me give these people some and not give these. No, it's all according about mindset, your perception. Now you have the ability to say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that God is going to give, these people more than me. And I don't, God, and you was created the same. You was created, and you say, well, these people, they deserve better. Like I used to feel this way. I used to feel this way about white people. I used to feel this way. I used to say, oh, they have the best of the best, and then I remember, going to, after this story, I'm done. I remember going to Lisa Nichols, who was a part of The Secret. Okay. And I remember Lisa Nichols had this. I would listen to her constantly. She's from Compton. Okay. She's a transformational coach. And I remember I listened to Lisa Nichols, and I remember I was so inspired by her. And she's of color. Okay. And I remember one day I went to see her, right? And this was in San Diego. I was so scared out of my darn mind. Okay, so scared. Honey, I had to catch the plane for the first time by myself. Now, before this, I only was on a plane one other time. Now, you're going to be tested. My sister, she was supposed to go with me. We never ordered tickets before, plane tickets. So we ain't know what the heck we was doing. We screwed it up. Okay. I was so determined to go see Lisa Nichols. And I remember my mother was in a car with me and I was listening to Lisa Nichols. I was so inspired and I was crying. I was like, Ma, I'm going to see her. Didn't have a clue on how I was going to see her. Didn't have a clue. Didn't know how. Okay. But I kept telling my mother, Ma, I'm going to see her. And what wound up happening was I became a part where, as though you get the emails and stuff like that about, what the person is doing and stuff. I subscribed to her email list. And I remember she had this speaking engagement coming up to, is called Speaking Right to Earn Millions. And I was so excited. Okay. I was so excited. The tickets was fairly inexpensive. I think they was like $300 or $400, really, really inexpensive. And I was like, oh, I'm going. Okay. It could have been 200. I don't know, but it was really inexpensive. And I was like, I'm going. And I had to book my own hotel room and, figure out how to get there. Me and my sister was supposed to go together. Okay. But we screwed up listen, if you don't know how to do something, you're going to screw up along the way. And that's okay. Be okay with that. So we screwed up and something like we had to wait or something to get the money back, the refund. It was a mess. It was a hot mess. Okay. But I had more money to order more, to get there, but just enough for me to get there and to pay for my room, because I was also waiting for my state income tax. And I remember, right? I was like, oh my God, I just took the leap out on faith. Okay. I booked the ticket. I didn't know exactly how I was going to eat and all this other stuff, because now I got to wait for my state income tax. That's what was left. And at that time I was doing Uber and Lyft and stuff. And I remember the guy who I was with, we was together for a while. And I remember I was thinking that he was gonna meet me at the airport, right? Because he had to go away for his job. And I was thinking like he was gonna meet me on the airport. He knew that I was, afraid to fly by my, I was afraid to fly with him, but most important, I was gonna be afraid to fly by myself. And I just was thinking I was thinking all these different things. Oh, this person gonna show up, this person gonna show up. Sometimes God is saying for you to just show up. Okay, God is saying for you to just show up. My sister couldn't come with me, but my sister, she dropped me off to Secaucus, New Jersey, so I could take the bus. And I had to take the bus from Secaucus to Boston. And from Boston, I had to take a plane. Okay, I had to take two planes. And I remember, oh my goodness, I was doing this basically, my mother would say, make sure you call me and stuff like that. This was a few years ago, probably about, I want to say probably about 8 years ago or 9 years ago. And I would call my mother and my sister would be on the other end. And the guy who I was with, I was like, oh, he gonna meet me at the airport, and he never showed up. He never showed up at the airport. And I just got on the next plane, then got to San Diego, didn't know a soul, honey. Didn't know a soul. Didn't know nobody there except for the event I was going to Lisa Nichols. Checked in a hotel and stuff. Now all these different things, I'm afraid. Okay. But I'm operating from faith so much. Okay. Now, a few things I got from my mentor, Bob Proctor, he said, is either you operate from faith or fear. And neither of those things you cannot see. Okay. You cannot see faith. You cannot see fear, but you operate from one or the other. You cannot sit in two chairs at the same time. You can't occupy two seats. Okay. It's either you're going to operate from one or the other. So I get to San Diego. I was nervous and stuff like that. And I met a few women. I seen Lisa Nichols. Okay, she was walking. She had her, I think, two bodyguards or something. I seen Lisa Nichols' father. Okay, and I remember another thing showed up. Okay. Now, Lisa Nichols has this thing where, you're going to transform, right? Like, she going to really get you uncomfortable. Like, you're really going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable. And I remember this was the first event that I had went to, where as though like I flew by myself and stuff like that. And I remember during the event, Lisa Nichols said, I want you to partner up with someone. She said, don't go to the bathroom. Don't try to go to the bathroom. She said, I want you to partner up with someone that you've never seen before. Somebody new. You don't know this person, I'm going to say, from a milk carton. Okay. She said, I want you to partner up with them. Oh, you're talking about hands started sweating. Oh my goodness. Partner up with them. I want you to grab the person and I want you to say these things to the person. Look this person in the eyes. Chow. Whew. You talking about challenge yourself? Somebody you never met before. Look them in the eye and I want you to repeat this. I am worthy. And she went on saying all these different things. Honey, well, I just started crying. Okay. Just kept crying. Okay. And that wasn't the first. Oh, she wasn't done. Then you had to partner up with someone else. And she says the same exact thing. I don't want you to go to the bathroom and try to, skip out on the assignment, whatever. She would say, I am here for your breakthrough. And you had to do the same thing. And honey, let me tell you something. Okay. You talk about challenge yourself. You talk about face yourself. Okay. And so I did those things and I crying, very vulnerable, felt fear. Okay. And one of the things that it taught me from the whole experience, having to fly by myself, having to go there by myself, not knowing no one, not with the tickets, buying the plane tickets, that things gonna work out. Okay. And although you may count on people, right, it's important you count on God. Because when my sister couldn't go, guess what? God was there. When the guy who I was in a relationship with that I thought was going to show up at the airport, and you know what? Even when I got to the hotel, I said, he's going to show up. He's going to show up. I kept calling him. He wouldn't answer the phone. Okay. And then later on, then I think the next day he had this big lie cooked up that he was sick. He didn't feel well. And we was living together. That he was sick. He didn't feel well and all this other stuff. Okay. And what that led me to know that although people may not show up or they may not be able to accompany you, that God is always with you. And you have to trust that things are going to work out. And they may not work out the way you feel that they ought to work out, but they always work out. And I want to leave that with you guys, okay? That things always work out the way they ought to. All right. And no matter what shows up, it is always for the greater good for you. It is always for the greater good. So you can't lose. You can't lose unless your perception is that you can lose. And another thing, if there's no enemy, it's a great African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside could do no harm. So nobody can stop you from success. Nobody can, make you believe that you don't have what it takes unless you accept it. If you accept it, this person knows more. Here God gave you the vision and you saying this person knows more. They haven't even accepted their vision. And be mindful of people who says, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like people, a lot of people there say, there's nothing to be afraid of. And religious people even oftentimes say, well, if you have faith, why are you afraid to do that? Because your faith will be tested. That's why. And the next thing is to understand that the fear is going to show up. That doesn't mean you don't have faith. That doesn't mean, and let me tell you something, to have courage and to be brave is to do something that you are afraid to do. Is the people who say you should not be afraid of that, or there's not, I could almost assure you that those people are the ones that do the same thing every day. They don't get out of their comfort zone. Okay. Those are the ones that do the same exact thing. They say the same. Next year, it'll be the same exact thing. Why? Because they're not doing anything to grow. They're not doing anything to be vulnerable. They're not doing anything to face themselves. But that's the truth here. Okay. All right. So I love you guys. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.